Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Wednesday, August 5th. You know, this week is like going by really slowly. For some reason, I thought today was Thursday. And like yesterday felt like Wednesday, although yesterday was Tuesday. But we're back, and we got a lot to talk about, and we got a lot of earnings that are going on in the pre-market. We had a bunch of earnings yesterday, particularly with AMD and SpaceX that we'll talk about, Zeta as well. We've got a lot of pre-market action. We got a bunch of new updates around Iran, a ton of earnings in the pre-market as well. And some of these earnings are once again denying the narrative that AI is going to commoditize software. Shopify crushed it. It looks like agentic commerce is a tailwind for Shopify, not a headwind. So we'll talk about that. OSS, that one not doing as well. That one taking a bit of a hit. You had Viavi. You had just a bunch of companies. Arista from yesterday up 10%. NVIDIA, ironically, getting most of the bid today in the large cap semi space over AMD. And I think that might be a broader question around valuation that we'll talk about. SpaceX down 11%. The call, in my opinion, was okay, but the numbers that were put out there I don't think were that believable, and that's why I think Wall Street is doubting a bit of the execution here. Even though the execution is amazing, it's just, once again, you know, stock's already worth $1.65 trillion, and tomorrow 912 million employee and early investor shares will be eligible to trade, which means the eligible shares are about 43% more than the 638 million shares that were issued at the IPO. Obviously, if those employees sell those shares because their cost basis is like $10 and the stock's at 100, you know, you might have some selling pressure right there. S&P 500 hit an all-time high yesterday. We also have Lilly. We'll talk about Lilly as well. That was a big earnings. Kratos yesterday. That was good earnings. S&P is up again pre-market, folks. 0.5%. 775 on the S&P. If the stream's not working too well, please refresh. Usually if you refresh it, it will fix most of the issues right there. So just give it a refresh and should be good to go. But the S&P 500 right there, 775 is just absolutely freaking incredible. 771 yesterday, we were up 1.8%. We have not had a 2% day in a long time. By the way, on Tuesday, we were up 1%. So it's almost like 3% in the past couple of days. Again, the S&P averages 10% a year. So 30% of the yearly gains we got in the past 2 days. And if we go up another 0.5% to 1% today, I mean, you're going to see a lot of momentum. A lot of momentum. So very, very exciting for what we're seeing right here. We got a ton of different things to talk about in regards to the macro. Memory is still down right here in the pre-market. Actually, a couple of reports came out around memory, and we'll discuss that. AAOI, the photonics plays, got a lot of love yesterday based on some of the new updates from China. That one's down 3% right here, giving back some of the gains. Micron's down about 1.4%. Some of the semis are down pre-market. Again, AMD, we will get into that one. Unfortunately, down about 7%. And then you have Pinterest, which is also down 9%. Shopify going the other direction. That is up 20%. Okay, I will increase the volume of my mic if that helps. I didn't change anything from yesterday. But let me know if this is better. Is it better? Is it better? Is it better? If not, I think I could just... Yeah, some people are saying I can hear you perfectly. Okay, so it might be a YouTube thing again. Yeah, you might just have to refresh. That's weird. Audio's fine. Audio's fine. It's better. Better. Okay, I will increase it just a little bit more, and that should be good. Okay, if it's still bad, let me know. But I think that should be okay. Okay, so let's get into it. Also, by the way, before we start off, we got some Iran updates, and we'll go through those in a little bit as well. But oil's up a little bit based on some of the stuff Trump said yesterday, even though some of the stuff that he said was really good. So not sure exactly why we're getting that big of a move. I think it's part of the reason because Israel just told residents of South Lebanon to leave. This came out literally 7 minutes ago. Israeli military issues an evacuation warning to a village in southern Lebanon, which tends to happen before they strike. And so if Israel were to hit Lebanon, I don't think the Iranians would be happy about that. That was part of the reason why the initial MOU back in June started to, not really be followed by the Iranians. Everything Trump and Rubio said last night hinted towards a deal that would potentially happen on Wednesday, which is today. So I think oil's up right here based on that Israel headline. But again, we'll find out if that's actually the reason and if we actually get some level of a MOU or framework for a ceasefire, which could hopefully get us in a much better situation. Okay, cool. So let's get started. AMD and SpaceX. I will increase the volume as much as I can on the mic. Hopefully it's not too much for the people whose audio is working. I'm increasing it literally as we speak. I don't know if that's going to fix it. I can get closer to the mic. I don't think that should change anything, but it's good now. It's good now. Mike sounds fine while muted. It sounds like you're far. Okay, the majority of you are saying it's okay. There's like a few of you saying it's bad, so we're just gonna keep it the way it is. All right, so SpaceX, AMD. Let's get started. So AMD. Look, AMD had a great quarter. They crushed it. I don't think anything was bad with AMD. The problem with AMD is just, again, their valuation, down 7.4%. This was not the same stock that it was 3 months ago when it was trading at $300, $250. And so as a result of that, I think you're starting to see the market say, wait a second, this is really good growth, but it's not exceptional growth. It's not meteoric growth that we expect out of companies, particularly in your field, aka NVIDIA and Intel. Now, Intel, again, much smaller company in terms of the type of growth that is expected, but because those expectations are lower, Intel tends to crush it in a much more aggressive way. Their stock still suffered, even though Intel had, what one could argue a significantly better earnings beat than AMD. So the numbers are great, as you can see right here on the screen. EPS up 240%, revenue up 50%, data center revenue 107%, adjusted EBITDA $3.3 billion, free cash flow $1.6 billion. Lisa Su continued to make the argument that the AI ecosystem is only growing and that there is going to be a stronger level of momentum when it comes to what's going to be happening with the broader tailwinds of AI. They got a bunch of different upgrades as well. Stifel upgraded them to 635. There were a couple of $700 upgrades. It was at one point Lisa Su even told one of the analysts on the call, and we'll talk about Shopify in a bit. I know that one's having a big pre-market. She said, what you're thinking from us, this is the exact quote, is that your data center AI number is probably too low. And back to Stacy's question, without going into exact numbers, I think this notion of over 100% should consider to be well over 100%. It's a progression over the next couple quarters, and as we go through the next couple quarters, we expect to continue growing Helios quarter by quarter. But yes, that's the best way of thinking of it. And I think her argument is just like, look, I gave you 150% returns this year. The stock is up like crazy. Yeah, I know it's not at $600 right now, and we're not at $1 trillion, but we're pretty damn close. And you guys are still doubting the growth expectations. Granted, AMD is not delivering the massive growth numbers that NVIDIA is. I mean, AMD did $1.6 billion of free cash flow. NVIDIA does $35 billion of free cash flow, right? So there is a fundamental difference, and AMD trades at 2x larger. The multiple, even if you go out a couple of years, the multiple is still a bit more aggressive than NVIDIA. So from that perspective, it's just like, look, the stock did really well. 7% takes it back to the price that it was at yesterday. Quite frankly, this thing moves 5 to 7% every day. It would not surprise me if it goes up 7% when the market opens or goes down another 4 or 5%. But I think if you're a long-term investor in AMD, there is nothing to be upset about. And there's nothing to sort of be scared about in terms of the actual numbers. It's just, one could argue the stock truly was priced at a level that was very aggressive. And so that's what we got in the context of AMD. Now, SpaceX, again, we'll get to all the different earnings. Let's just cover this from last night, and then we'll keep going from there. The problem with SpaceX right here is that this thing makes no sense, okay? This valuation is really stupid. We just have to be honest about it. We've been saying it for the past month since it's gone public, and it continues to be stupid. And as much as I love Elon, his comments yesterday reek of desperation. First of all, Elon commented under a person who tweeted about the shorts on SpaceX like 20 minutes before the earnings, and he's like, I tried to tell them they're going to get burned. And it's like, dude, like, hold on. You know your results are not good enough to get like a 10, 15% pop. Maybe the stock reverses somehow. I don't know. But like, whenever Elon tends to get so aggressive in talking about the shorts in particular, it's because he's trying to hype up the stock and the numbers just aren't really there. And look, the numbers were decent. The numbers weren't horrible. You got revenue of 92% year over year, space revenue up 29% year over year, adjusted EBITDA up 191%, backlog of $47.5 billion, EPS, they lost 9 cents versus 24 cents expected. The problem was, once again, there are $116 billion worth of stock that's about to be unloaded on this company in the next 24 hours. And this backlog number is, quite frankly, the only reason I think the multiple somewhat makes sense, even though I think the multiple still right now is a bit too aggressive with the level of dilution that's coming in. That's because of their AI business. And the most interesting the most interesting note that we got from SpaceX, quite frankly, wasn't even about SpaceX. It was about Mr. Jensen. Elon said, going forward, we've decided to build exclusively on NVIDIA because we think the Vera architecture is the best architecture. We think it's the best AI computer. We greatly value our close cooperation and partnership with NVIDIA, so we're exclusive to NVIDIA. SpaceX will be a very, very, very big company one day, and NVIDIA is going to help them become that big company. But right now, the growth is happening with NVIDIA, not happening with SpaceX. And if SpaceX wants to build this massive terafab and wants to get to $1 trillion of revenue by 2030, Elon said there's a non-zero chance it happens by 2029. The only way you get $1 trillion of revenue, it's not connectivity, it's not satellite broadband to cell phones out there, it's not internet, it's going to have to be AI compute. I mean, it's going to have to be orbital data centers. That's the only way the analysts are estimating about $80 billion of revenue by the end of next year, 50 billion this year. So he's talking about 15 to 20xing revenue in 4 years. Like, again, the only companies that have like meaningfully even gotten close to doing that are companies like Nvidia back in the 2021 to 2024 era, where like you had such a big ramp up. Or maybe we'll see that with Optimus when robotics really gets to scale. Maybe that happens with orbital data centers, but like if it doesn't, then it's just a promise that once again is being used, I think, to create a bit of liquidity for the stock, because you've got a lot of stock that's getting unlocked. Google, by the way, has a $94 billion stake in SpaceX. Well, now it's not 94 billion because that was at 1.75 trillion. It's probably closer to like 85 billion, 80 billion, but they can't sell it. They can't sell it for another year. So you've got a lot of big holders that are holding on to this name, that have held on to this name for a long time. And eventually when they liquidate, there's going to need to be market liquidity to take in those shares. And I think that's what the company is trying to do with their results and with the way that Elon's talking about it, but it's just not matching up to reality. SpaceX right there down 11% in the pre-market. Rocket Lab is up because they got a $350 million contract last night. They got a $266 million contract the other day. So I think Rocket Lab, $397 million actually by the US Space Force. I think Rocket Lab would be up closer to the 80s right now if SpaceX was up, because Rocket Lab still struggles through the SpaceX algo. But once again, talk about execution. Rocket Lab is not worth 1.5 trillion, right? Still trades at a premium, but the fact that they're getting these contracts at the scale that they are is pretty incredible. And that is a $397 million contract by the US Space Force to build multiple advanced flatellite spacecraft for the SBAMTI program, launching them once again on Neutron. So really exciting stuff for Rocket Lab. ASTS also, you had some exciting stuff here as SpaceX just launched 3 Bluebird satellites today as well. ASTS had a nice 7% day as the entire market benefited. ASTS down about 1.9%. Again, if SpaceX was up today, I think ASTS and Rocket Lab would be up 4 or 5% as well. A lot of you guys still complaining about the sound. I really don't know what to do about that. We're going to do one thing real quick just to see if this helps. I'm going to change the mic. So that is the MacBook mic. I'm going to unplug the actual mic. So let's give it a second. Okay, we're going to replug this mic. We're going to replug this right now. Okay, now the majority of you are saying it's okay. All right, so I'm just going to go with the majority here. We're going to change the mic again. Let's change it right here. All right, I hope that fixed it. If not, then I don't know what to do. But I hope that fixed it. I don't think it was trolls, bro. It was like 15 comments in a row saying that. If it was trolling, then that's just mean. Don't be a mean person. But okay, hopefully it's good. All right, so that's what we had with AMD and SpaceX. If those stocks fall today, I think it'll hurt all the high beta names, but I think we got a lot of insights into where AI is growing from AMD and SpaceX. It's just those stocks were a little bit too high. Last thing on AMD real quick. Now it's better? Okay, maybe that did fix it. They're spending a lot more on CapEx. So they were supposed to spend $250 million. They're spending almost $1 billion, $800 million. Nvidia, by the way, spends about $1.2 billion as well. So this was actually confusing. Partly it's because of the Helios rack system and like scaling that, which is why the CapEx is justified and it's why it's not that big of a deal. But the fact that they are spending way more on CapEx than expected, I think that's the obvious answer for why the stock fell 8%. They just increased CapEx by like 200%. So I don't think it's really a bad thing. Again, the CapEx will lead to an ROI because they're spending money to actually build out their infrastructure, but that's probably the reason the stock got a hit. Okay, Shopify. Let's get into the earnings that we had this morning. Shopify absolutely crushed it. I mean, just what a quarter. This is, part of the reason took a position in this name back on Memorial Day, bought it at the same time I bought Reddit. And, the larger argument with Shopify, it's one of those names I've been talking about for years, but never really initiated a position. 103, it bounced from 94. Number 2, Thrive Capital took a $100 million stake. And then number 3, there's one thing about Shopify in the numbers that really impressed me, which was kind of the core reason to be excited about it. And, you're seeing the 20% growth right here, or you're seeing the 20% move on the stock, which is what's helping the street kind of see that same change in the numbers. And I think it's the same change that a lot of people saw is GMV and revenue. I mean, revenue has accelerated to 34% for the first time in 5 years. That is a business that is re-accelerating growth. That is a software business that is showing that agents aren't commoditizing their growth. And quite frankly, that's a founder-led company, which is something I also love as well with Toby, that is making sure to capitalize on what's happening in the age of AI. So they beat on revenue, 3.5 versus 3.4. GMV, Street wanted 112. They came in at 115. That's up from 87 billion a year ago. I mean, just unbelievable levels of growth when it comes to gross merchandising volume. Operating income's up 68% year over year. MRR is up 221 million. They beat on the guide, beat on the segment net revenue, beat on gross profits, 1.7 billion versus 1.3 billion. Toby said we had more than 30% growth in GMV and revenue and gross profit and free cash flow. I mean, you talk about a stock that's growing, you're getting the growth. GMV growth accelerated on top of last year's already strong Q2 with solid results across all merchant sizes, channels, and geographies. Shopify was $150 90 days ago, the same price it's at right now, basically delivered the same results. I mean, I think free cash flow didn't grow 30%, but pretty much everything else was in that like 25 to 30% range. The stock fell to $94. And that was because there were many arguments. Shopify hit 165 in the pre-market buy, by the way, 150 right here. There were many arguments that, look, AI agents are going to commoditize the necessity to have an intermediary like Shopify on these stores. And to me, and I think a lot of holders, that didn't make a lot of sense, because if you've ever used Shopify, and I did use Shopify back in 2017, should have been buying the stock, but I was like, interacting with different e-commerce websites, and it is the de facto backend architecture. Like, you're not going to use Squarespace or Wix, and if you're not really doing a ton of merchandise, you're not going to be on Amazon. Like, if you're just getting started, if you're just trying to get into an entrepreneurial journey and sell stuff on the internet, it's Shopify. They are the platform, and AI, I think, is only becoming a tailwind for them. More importantly, the stock price reaction means that the market is not thinking of SaaS as dead, because you're seeing Palantir, which continues to move in the pre-market, 163. And there was a lot of option flow coming in on Palantir yesterday. By the way, the shorts lost $3 billion on paper yesterday on Palantir. So we might see a little squeeze. And I don't think 170 is out of the question. I think it obviously has made a big move. If it gives back some of the gains, it is what it is. But you're seeing Palantir, you're seeing ServiceNow, you're seeing Microsoft, obviously, you're seeing Shopify, like you're seeing Zeta, which we'll talk about. You're seeing a lot of these SaaS companies get some of their momentum. And that momentum, I think, is incredibly bullish, and also changing the narrative around the broader idea that software is dead. And so as a result of that, hopefully, we see more SaaS companies start to participate in what's going on. Okay, Zeta, that's up 2% pre-market. Let's talk about Zeta. So look, I'm going to have an earnings review on Zeta, Shopify, and Grab. I wrote them last night. It'll be posted right after the market opens, so probably posted around 12:30, and I will go very in-depth into all three of those. The one thing I will say about Zeta is they crushed all their numbers. We don't have to go through every little nuance of the numbers that they crushed, but the big thing that happened, and I don't want to be the guy to be like, this is the reason I'm blaming for the earnings 10% drawdown yesterday, but I kind of do think this is why it's happening. They also got upgrades across the board. KeyBank upgraded them to 27. They got a couple $30 upgrades today. Is that Robinhood just misreported the numbers? And quite frankly, this is Zeta's fault. This is not Robinhood's fault. So Robinhood, if a ticker doesn't matter that much in like the investing community, Robinhood, FactSet, the brokers, Bloomberg, they won't fully be aligned on the numbers, because no one really cares that much about the results. And so if there's an EPS beat or a miss, like, it doesn't really matter. The market's not going to fully care, and the brokers aren't going to fully care. And Zeta needs to make sure that they contact all the people at these brokerages and tell them, hey, our stock matters. There's a lot of people that care about it, and we need to make sure you have the updated results. So they beat on GAAP EPS. On Robinhood and IBKR and Webull, it said they missed by like 10 cents. And as a result of that, the initial reaction is, if you miss on earnings, the algos get upset, retail gets upset, and the stock sells off. So, I really thought there was no reason for this thing to go from 25 to 21 yesterday after beating on revenue, 44% year over year, adjusted EBITDA, GAAP profitability. Gross margins did decline Q over Q, having to do with some of the stuff from the acquisition. I really don't think that's that big of a deal. Like, I don't think that's nitpicking per se, because gross margins are important, but I also don't think that denies the triple, quadruple, quintuple beat on pretty much every metric that matters in their 20th beat and raise quarter that they've had. So I will blame Zeta for this. I'm not going to blame the brokers. At the end of the day, Zeta is a big boy company. If they want to be seen as a $20, $30 billion company, they have to make sure that the brokerages recognize the numbers that they're putting out, and this is what you got to do beforehand. So look, is it the brokerage's fault? Yes, but the brokers do this for stock. Like, brokers aren't going to get NVIDIA's numbers wrong. I'll tell you that. They're not going to get Palantir's numbers wrong. They're not going to get Tesla's numbers wrong. So if they're getting a $4 or $5 billion company's numbers wrong, it's because they just don't care that much about it. And so as a result of that, I think, they'll learn from this experience, but it created a hell of a dip opportunity. Now, maybe it goes right back down to 21 when the market opens, but it was hitting 25 in the pre-market. And I think part of the reason for that is because the quarter was good, and they increased the guide all across the board. So I'll have much more to write up about it on X later today, but overall, I think this thing has a shot. If we get a decent little macro backdrop to break out into that 26, 27 range, it would be really nice to see it break 25 resistance. But overall, I thought the quarter itself was pretty good. All right, so this is what we got. SPY, that's up 0.5%. That continues to move higher. Pinterest down 5%. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Tesla's down 1%. OSS, what we've got going on there. I don't even know. I really didn't look at these results this morning, but that's down 13%. Now, again, the stock was at 4, went to 20, now at 14. Down 13% right there. So we'll pull up the results right now. But again, this is also a small cap. So any level of results that were not that exciting probably is why the street's not, giving it that much love. But again, this is what you get with a small cap, right? You get that insane triple-digit volatility to the upside. You're going to get some double-digit volatility to the downside. And then we'll talk about Lilly. It is Robinhood's fault. It is Robinhood's fault to an extent. I'm just saying, if you're Zeta, if you're a smaller company and you want to make sure your numbers are accurately reported, you've got to be able to get that stuff fixed. Essentially, it's both of their faults. But I feel like if you want to take accountability, and you're a company and you realize your company is getting a lot more attention, you just got to make sure that stuff is in place. So I think it will be in place next time. That's the most important thing. And this just can't happen again. You can't have a quintuple beat and then the brokers say you missed on earnings, right? And that means you as a company have to take responsibility to make sure that shit doesn't happen. And so I think hopefully it'll be fixed in the future. Okay, OSS, they beat on revenue, 9.3 versus 8.5 million, up 62% year over year. Adjusted EPS, negative 1 cent versus negative 2 cents as well. The fiscal year 2026 guide was relatively okay, up 30% from up 25%, and then positive EBITDA versus adjusted EBITDA was really good. There is, from my understanding, a potential lawsuit with OSS as well. Dude, what is going on with the mic today? How are you guys saying that? Is the mic still bad? Yeah, you're going to have to refresh at this point. I don't understand why people are still saying the mic is bad right here. It can't be the mic because I've increased the volume like crazy. Okay, I'm just going to ignore all the mic is bad comments at this point. Because when I ask, 100 of you say the mic is fine. And if it's bad, I'm sorry, but it's really not me. You're going to have to refresh. YouTube's been weird for the past couple of weeks. It's got to be more YouTube. Okay, anyway, OSS, yeah, from my understanding, the earnings beats are okay. There are a couple of legal things they're involved in, but they also didn't announce some massive contract here, right? Last quarter, if I'm not wrong, they announced a pretty big deal on the day of earnings, and that's also what got the street excited. Today, I'm not seeing that type of massive deal that they were supposed to have. And so, or that, they were expected to be able to get. Now, the second quarter bookings reached 15.1 million. That was the highest in the company's history. Again, they raised guidance from 25 to 30%. But once again, it was up a lot. It was up 9% yesterday, and it's up more than 100% year to date. So this is the same thing with AMD. It's intraday volatility, stuff you have to expect in the pre-market. And I wouldn't say there's one or two reasons for it other than, the stock was priced pretty high. Same thing for AMD. Stock was priced pretty high, and now it's taking somewhat of a little bit of a hit right there. Okay, so that's what you have on OSS. Lilly. So we talked about Lilly yesterday as they're having a lot more attention based on different drugs that are entering into the ecosystem that are getting the market to be more excited about Lilly. From everything I'm seeing, and again, this is a $1 trillion company. It's not a small company, but once again, they continue to produce the results that are needed to get growth. By the way, U.S. July private employment was up 44,000 versus expectations of 65,000. So you did have more and more people get hired, not above the expectations, but technically that's good, so that inflation is not that big of a deal, or at least the market doesn't think inflation is a big deal, but labor market continues to be relatively healthy across the board. Lilly, okay, so this is what we've got on Lilly. Revenue, 23 billion versus 20 billion. That's a beat by 3 billion. That's up 50% year over year. Adjusted EPS, 838 versus $6. That's up 33% year over year. You can see their class of drugs are up 91%, 41%. Fiscal year guide, a little bit light, 3650 versus 3420, but still relatively good. Revenue, 87 versus 85. Margins at 50%. I mean, there's nothing really to complain with Lilly. Once again, I think if you're betting on this name, you're betting on the long-term future of where AI is going, particularly around drug discovery. And, drug discovery is not slowing down anytime soon. Lilly CEO said, with our next-generation weight loss medicine, Retatrude, and its complete clinical data package in hand, new manufacturing capacity coming online, and exciting new assets entering our pipeline through business development, Lilly's momentum continues as we delivered 48% revenue growth, raised our full-year guidance. The only problem with Lilly right here is, once again, I don't think it's a big name that is filled with generating alpha. Could this become a $2 trillion company? Yes. Is it going to happen overnight? Probably not. And so as a result of that, I think it's just going to take some time. But, eventually, this is kind of like Shopify to me. It's like you sleep well at night owning the stock, knowing that they are leaders in drug discovery, and AI is obviously becoming a lot a lot more relevant to them as the models get even better and better. Iran, before we go into some of the other earnings, here's what Trump had to say yesterday. And here's why the market, at least last night, took oil down about 2%.
Iran, as an example, will never have a nuclear weapon. They already can't, but it's going to be formal. The Strait's going to be open very soon, or they're going to get hit very hard, and then the Strait's going to be open. And we were going to a tremendous attack, the biggest since World War II. And they called me and said, very politely, please, can we talk? Can we talk? They didn't want. And I said, yes, we can talk. Let's get it done. Finally, let's get it done. This should have been done by other presidents for 50 years. You know, you keep hearing 47, but that's been for 3 years now. It's been over 50 years. Other presidents or other countries should have been able to do this. And I did something that I had to do, because if they had a nuclear weapon, this whole world would be a different place. Iran, as an example, will never have a nuclear. If they back out again, they're going to get hit really hard. You know, they know that. They understand that. I have no choice. They can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. It's not like, gee, let's, think about something else. No, it should have been done by many presidents over many years, and it wasn't. And I'm doing it. Obama was taken to the cleaners. He thought he could bribe his way out. He gave them billions, tens of billions of dollars, so stupidly. 1.7 billion in cash, green cash, on a Boeing 757, an airplane loaded up with cash. They probably looked at it. They said, you got to be kidding. No, you can't bribe your way out. All you can do is fight your way out. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be talking if we weren't doing what we're doing. We hit them very, very hard, but the hard hit is yet to come, and hopefully we won't have to use it. I hope we won't have to. We're having very good discussions. They don't like to admit that, but it's a little bit disconcerting. You tell people like you, we're having wonderful discussions, and then some guy will come out of Iran and say, we have not met, we have not, it's just such a lie. All day long, you understand, it's just incredible. We didn't talk, they'll say, we didn't talk about nuclear. Well, what do we talk about? We're sitting there twiddling our thumbs, right? So, but it doesn't matter, that's talk. The only thing that matters is action, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. If they don't make a deal, it's going to be too bad.
Okay, so as you can see, this is not the same Trump we've had over the past couple of days, right? Or past couple of weeks. The Trump we had over the past couple of weeks was incredibly more aggressive, and now he's saying, look, we're talking, we're going to get a deal. They say we're not talking, but we are talking. OSS now down 14% right here. It's got to be something in the print that the street was upset about. Didn't see the headline numbers being that ugly, but maybe again it was just priced a little too heavy going into the print. But Trump's, he's acting different, and the way that he's acting different leads me to believe that once again those bond yields are concerning to him. He sees the stock market go up, and as a result of seeing the stock market go up, there is a incentive for him, I think, to not be too upset about, wanting to carry out the initial mission he had. Also, he's seeing bond yields come down, 10-year right there at 4.6. Oil, is significantly lower than where it was last week. I know it's up a little bit right here in the pre-market at 75.88, but this thing could fall to 70 pretty easily on some serious news of the market shifting their mentality. As Lisa Su is on CNBC, let's go to that right here. But as a result of that, I just think we have a way better macro backdrop than we've had in a long time, because it looks like Trump is a bit more serious, hopefully, of actually getting this war to be over.
$2 trillion as we go through 2030. And with all of that information, we wanted to reframe where our business is. And the fact is, our data center business is accelerating. We're extremely excited about our foundational model, large strategic partners like OpenAI and Meta, and we just added Anthropic to the mix there. And this is a case where, we do see our data center business growing well over 100% as we go into 2027. And those are just very large numbers when you think about, the base that we're on top of.
But also, I want to talk about CPUs. You guys have, as you taught me, you're just the CPU company. And it does seem that some of these analysts, I'm just harping on the analysts because the stock's down today. Some of these analysts are somehow thinking that your CPU business, because this lower margin, is going to hurt you. I don't see how that's possible. I think it's just 100% additive. Am I too bullish about AMD?
Well, I think, Jim, you're right on a couple of aspects. What we have seen in the AI market over the last, I would say, 6 or 7 months is really an inflection in demand. and especially in the CPU market. So what we're finding is as AI is becoming more useful for people, as we're using more agents, as enterprises are using more of their workloads from, let's call it what was experimentation into now production workloads, people need a lot more CPU compute as well as GPU compute. And we are the leaders in CPU compute. We're very, very proud of our technology stack. We just announced our next generation. Venice has launched, and as you know, our Italian cities very well. Venice is leadership across every aspect of compute, whether you're talking about the highest performance or the most overall performance per core. Those are areas where we just lead. So we're excited about where the market is, because the market needs a lot more compute, and we're even more excited about just the overall positioning in the market because our product portfolio is so broad and strong.
So Lisa, as IT budgets get assembled for next year, how should people think about the enterprise state of mind? I mean, is it about sort of cost discipline and trying not to token max and being wary of our potential ROI, or is it about just breaking some stuff and hitting the pedal to the metal?
Well, Carl, it's a great question. I think it's a little bit of both. And the way I see it, spending time with a lot of CEOs and CIOs right now, the desire is to truly use AI as a tool. AI is a tool to help all of our businesses become more productive. And there is a good amount of experimentation where you're trying to figure out which is the right model that will get the best outcome from a business standpoint. But we are also in the place where the AI costs are getting so large that everybody has to manage, just like you manage your employee costs, you have to manage your AI costs. And I'm a big believer in there will be all kinds of models that are important as you go forward. And that includes using the largest foundational models, as well as using open models and let's call it smaller and medium-sized models as you think about all the different use cases. So I think the state of mind in enterprise today is, how do I take advantage of AI while ensuring that I'm managing it for what will be significant growth going forward?
Lisa, you mentioned open source models. There's certainly a bit of a debate going on around that right now. I mean, do you philosophically believe that open models are better and safer, or is it more from your position a competitive necessity in some ways that you embrace them?
Yeah, David, I don't think about what's better or worse. What I think about is it's a broad ecosystem. And at the end of the day, AMD has been built on the fact that we think an open foundation is actually quite important, whether you're talking about hardware and software. But you're going to have, sort of the largest foundational models, the most advanced are going to be, extremely, extremely important. But you're also going to want to have access to open models. And it is very much, the point that we want to let, the customers really choose what they need for their business. And we need to do it in, a very, safe and reliable way, of course, across the board.
I mean, in terms of your two largest publicly announced compute commitments, they are OpenAI and Anthropic, both of which are closed models. I'm just sort of, if I can understand how you reconcile that with the open source message you're also sending.
I think you need all of the above, David. That's what I would say. I think.
Okay, so this is a good question, and I'm pretty sure what Lisa's going to say is exactly what Zuckerberg said, which is to not alienate open source or closed source, it's to have both. But there's still some tension, because if the open source gets cheaper than the closed source and gets just as good, the closed source models might not be needed, which means their spending commitments get into question.
You have tremendous innovation that happens in the largest model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. I think the progress in the models just over the last 6-7 months has been enormous. We also see good progress on open models, and I think they will coexist in the ecosystem. That's one of the things that's so amazing about tech, right? You have different solutions for different workloads, and that's the way it's going to continue to evolve. The overarching thing that underlies all of that is you need more AI compute, because there's
definitely need more compute.
Workloads that are coming.
I just wondered,
Which is, once again, I mean, Lisa kind of, as much as she has to worry about the closed models, because Anthropic and OpenAI do pay AMD a lot of money, you need more compute, whether it's open source or closed source. And so at the end of the day, all the semis should benefit regardless of who wins. It's just if you're levered to OpenAI and Anthropic, which AMD definitely is, it creates a little bit bigger of an issue.
those models get commoditized over time. This is obviously not to your business model, but I am curious about theirs.
I actually believe you're going to continue to value just like you value the smartest people, you're going to value the smartest models. And it's about, you need, sort of a range of different technology for the various use cases that you see in enterprise.
All right, so Lisa, just want to go over the elephant in the room. First of all, it is very clear that your stock started falling after the analysts didn't get their 14 billion, which was a whisper number. A lot of people feel your stock was falling because of something that Elon Musk said. That actually was after, and it did not really impact the stock. But I want to go over it. Elon says, this is on the SpaceX, we decided to build exclusively on NVIDIA because we think the Vera Rubin architecture is the best architecture. We think it's the best AI computer. We greatly value our close cooperation partnership on many levels. With NVIDIA, you had a partnership with Elon Musk too. What do you think is the reason why you decided to go exclusively? Because I think you would argue that your compute and your memory are every bit as good and the next generation better than NVIDIA.
Well, first of all, I would say SpaceX is an incredibly important technology company. We have extreme respect for what they're trying to do when you think about the technology that they're putting forward. We're proud of the work that we're doing with them across a number of areas. When I think about compute, Jim, one of the things that I say often, and you've heard me say this often, is you need the right compute for the right workload. And from our standpoint, we have extremely strong roadmap as we think about Helios and going forward to our MI500 series. So we're proud of the fact that we have broad relationships across the board, and we look forward to really helping all tech companies really have the right compute for the right workload.
All right, so I want to be sure again, when Dave.
All right, so that is what we got from Lisa Su. Once again, her kind of core argument is compute demand is going up. That is not slowing down. Microsoft right there trying to go for $500. We haven't touched it all week. Let's see if we can get it today, $498. It's just, again, the stock was a bit expensive. And quite frankly, it wouldn't surprise me if this reverses. If we get a little bit of a drawdown off this 8% drawdown, then it is what it is. But if S&P gets another 1-2% day, which, it looks like it's on track to get at least up 1%, that would not be the worst thing in the world. Couple of macro stats before we get into it. We got about 7 minutes until the market opens. So there are people calling the rally we've had over the past couple of days as the start of a new bull market. There are also people calling it a blow off top. Put in the chat which one you think it is. Is it March 30 V-shape into all-time highs? Or is it something that's a bit scarier? And this is the reason why. S&P call option volume record 4 million contracts of calls purchased yesterday. I mean, you've never seen this type of, of course the S&P was up 2% yesterday. Anything you buy, if you bought something that was red yesterday, you have to be really special to find out what was red. Everything was going up, and that's because you got a lot of momentum coming into the markets. And that momentum, I think, is a result of the deleveraging potentially being out of the overall system. The AI names, once again, giving their earnings, the hyperscalers crushing CapEx and ROI projections. You just got a lot of good stuff. The software names coming back and showing the market that software is not dead. Got a lot of moving parts that are making the market seem a bit more excited. And then the biggest thing is oil fell 15% over the past 5 days. And if it continues to fall, which hopefully I would imagine it does continue to fall, you have another macro backdrop to get the market to be a lot more excited. By the way, this is the new meme going around. Our boy Ken Griffin is up 6% in the month of July after taking Leopold's assets. And again, for a hedge fund, 6% might not sound that amazing to a lot of people, but for a hedge fund managing the hundreds of billions of dollars that they're managing to get 6% in a month, when most hedge funds could barely do 6-7% a year, is unbelievable. It's massive. And it's part of the reason is because they were able to get 5% of Nebius for 40, 50 cents on the dollar. Nebius now back in the 220s. They got it at 140. The discounts they got on Bloom, Nebius, SanDisk, just unbelievable discounts. Nebius right there down a little bit in the pre-market. And it's quite incredible. So you're seeing a lot of that momentum come back. Now, is it a little too bullish? I definitely do think a lot of stocks have definitely gotten out of that, oh my goodness, this is dirt cheap type of narrative. And now they're starting to get a premium that comes back into it. And you are part of the other reason I think So that is part of the reason why it can be like a bit aggressive. But part of the reason I think it's not as aggressive is because SpaceX is down 11%. And quite frankly, it should be. And I don't have a short position. I don't want it to go down, but it's like the market is being a bit more rational about price action and saying, hey, we're going to give Shopify 20% of a premium here because they just grew 34%. Whereas SpaceX, a lot of it's already baked in. There's a lot of dilution coming, and so we should be a bit more skeptical. And that doesn't happen on a blow-off top. A blow-off top felt more like June when SpaceX was bigger than Microsoft for a day. Like, so although there's a lot more excitement coming into the markets, we already went through such a crappy month in July. I don't know if we would have to see a blow off top, but then again, August tends to be weak historically. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. Google, they came back from 317 up to 370. They are in talks to buy a coding startup, 1.5 billion. So even with Claude and GPT Codex getting all the craze when it comes to agentic coding, and Gemini has some role in that, but it's not like the enterprise de facto standard that people use. I think Google wants to be. And so these coding companies that are out there, AI coding has been the biggest use case that we've seen from AI in the enterprise. It looks like Google is now going after that as well. Uber didn't have the best earnings because mobility did not grow at the level that it needed to grow at. It was an okay earnings, but reason why the stock is down right here is because it was a bit mediocre. So 12% year-over-year growth, again, barely beat expectations. Just the DPS came in line, just the EBITDA 2.8 billion versus 2.75. Free cash flow actually missed on expectations. CEO said we've added more first-time users over the past 12 months than any period over the past 15 years. The trailing 12-month free cash flow exceeded 10 billion. This stock should be a $120 stock just based on that free cash flow if you put a reasonable multiple on it. But the robotaxi narrative, I think, pulls it back along with the lack of mobility growth in this quarter. Also, Uber is investing 10 billion in autonomous vehicles, which, you know, you look at this and say, good, they're embracing the future. You also look at that and say, hey, maybe the future is going to gobble up Uber and it's not going to be as big of a player. I tend to be on the latter versus the former and say, look, Uber is going to be fine. They're going to be able to invest and have this hybrid network. I don't think robotaxi is just going to take every single mile that's driven across the world. But once again, that narrative is not that exciting for Uber. The reason NVIDIA, we got 2 minutes until the market opens, is getting that pump. Again, SpaceX also deployed some of those ASTS satellites today. So maybe that's going to be a catalyst for a satellite with Bluebird. Launch from SpaceX. NVIDIA was talked about a lot yesterday on the call. It's funny because AMD is an investor in XAI, and Elon basically said we are exclusive to NVIDIA, and we will continue using NVIDIA for everything that we need to do, especially building out the terafab. And I think that's because Jensen's giving him either a good price on the chips or he's giving him priority access to the chips. And Elon has been thanking Micron, NVIDIA. So I think Elon's recognizing, hey, for me to really build this empire and this magical AI abundance era that I want to be in charge of, I need a lot of compute. And it once again proves the bull case on NVIDIA. Again, everything has ran over the past couple of days in a pretty exciting way. Even the semiconductor names that were, down a lot. I know they're not at their all-time highs, but they've had a pretty big run. NVIDIA is the one that really hasn't broken out yet compared to the multiple that it trades at. Meta right there, back above 600 in the pre-market. Hopefully we can keep that. So I would imagine NVIDIA is in a decent spot to get there. For those complaining about the volume again, I'm sorry. I will try to fix it after the show. I have no idea what happened here. Maybe it is time for a new mic. This is a $500 mic. This is not like a cheap mic, but maybe it is 4 years old. So maybe I need to buy a new mic and we'll hopefully fix it for the market close. But here we go. It is Wednesday, August 5th. Thank you all for being here. The stock market is once again open. All right, wake your asses up. Let's get into it. NVIDIA opens up on the day 2.45%. That is green. NVIDIA getting a nice big green candle right there. By the way, we haven't seen 215 and above on NVIDIA in over a month and a half. So it has been a long time since we've even kind of gotten close to 220. Wow, 218. Let's see if she actually goes for it. Let's see if she does. Palantir, 164. Oh my, that's a candle. Oh, that's a candle. That is a candle, $163.80. If that candle was sold at Target, it would cost $163 right there. Look at that. 160 to 163. Shopify up 22%. That is green. Rocket Lab 75. Zeta above 25. Thank you. Did not deserve to go to 2150 on the earnings reaction. Again, I think some of the brokers got the earnings prints wrong. Markets maybe recognizing it didn't deserve to do that. That's up 4.5%, getting some green. Micron, that's up. That is green. Redwire, that is green. AAOI, that was red in the pre-market. That is green. Where are SpaceX and AMD? SpaceX, whoa, 12% down. That would be on sale if you were buying that candle at Target. Where is AMD? AMD is actually not that bad. AMD was like pushing below 475 pre-market. Now at 42. which is not that horrible. Goodness gracious, 165. Again, the shorts lost $3 billion yesterday on Palantir. It would not surprise me right here if we see some covering and maybe we get some squeezy action. Every upgrade from the analysts took them into that $200 range. Let's see. Maybe 170 is on deck. Zeta, 25.63. We need to break 25. 25.50 really has been resistance. I don't even think it's ever touched 26 this year. So it'd be very nice to break above that level. Akamai, that's down about 0.5%. Palo Alto, that's up 1.9. Klarna, that's up 1. Robinhood goes red. Rocket Lab got a $397 million contract yesterday from the U.S. Space Force, 7510. That continues to go green. Nvidia, are we holding 215? 218.70. We touched 219. Let's see if 220 is on deck, which would also be very exciting. S&P still holding on to 775. That's green. Shopify, 20% move. I think Shopify will consolidate around 140 to 150. I don't know if it breaks out into the 160s. Shopify is still an expensive stock. It's always been an expensive stock, but growth is back and SaaS is not dead, which hopefully gives Shopify some more love. ServiceNow back at 119. This thing was at like 93 2 weeks ago. So it definitely has made a massive move from these levels. Lilly, that's up 7%. Market likes it. Nebius, can we get some love? Nebius down 3%. Still up a lot from yesterday. At the lows at 211, 219 right now, almost 220, but not horrible at these levels for Nebius. That's down about 2%. How about Broadcom? Broadcom, 423. Broadcom surprised me yesterday. I did not expect Broadcom to break out above 400 as well as it did, but it's actually holding it, which is very nice to see. Did we touch 26 on Zeta? We did not, but we are trying. We are trying. 25.50, that's up 5%. SpaceX down 12. I wonder if they let this thing go below 100. I really wonder if they let her go below 100. SpaceX just lost $205 billion in market cap. I think that is potentially one of the largest market drops it's had. Raymond James continues to say it will go to $800 in a year. I would love to talk to the analysts from Raymond James and just get an understanding of why they think that. We got to get some drinks, and I don't want to be on an interview. I want to, we need to get some liquor in the system. Be like, hey man, who paid you? Like, just tell it. How much did they pay you to put the $800 target? Like, you just tell it. Was it $800? Was it like 800,000? Like, just let us know. How much did they actually pay you? Nvidia, 218.50. ASTS, honestly, guys, once again, I think if you're in the space stocks, you're beholden to this stupid SpaceX algo. SpaceX down 12. It's hard for Rocket Lab and ASTS to get the move. Like, they end up just taking a pretty big hit right there. AMD, is that still down? AMD, that's still down 5%. AMD, though, you're seeing a nice recovery, 463 to 493. I mean, if it were only to be down 5% on the day, I don't think that would be the worst thing in the world. SPY 776. That is an all-time high on S&P 500, which again is freaking crazy. Google. When's the last time I saw Google into the 380s? 383 right here on Mr. Googs. That's up 1.4%. So if you bought the dip on Googs at 317, $30 lower from where Buffett agreed to buy 10 billion, you are up substantially from those levels. Again, these are massive $4 or $5 trillion companies moving the way they're moving. That's a lot of market cap being added into the S&P. These are not small companies. Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Meta moving the way they're moving. There you go. 26 on Zeta. There she goes. There she goes. 26.14. Market cap is still 6.4 billion, trading at about 4.5 times sales for 44% growth. I think it's well deserved. I think it's well deserved. Hopefully we can hold on to 26. We have not hit 26 all year, so this is really price discovery now, folks. This is how much is the market bullish enough to believe that the story they heard last night was good and that they want to keep betting on the story. Palantir 164.39. By the way, the big thing Zeta said in its earnings is that their OpenAI and Palantir partnerships aren't even factored into their guidance. And from my understanding, those are partnerships that substantially should be able to increase the growth trajectory, particularly the one with Palantir, which should add another $100 million per year in revenue. So, I mean, I would imagine 2027's guide would be very attractive if that's where those partnerships come into play. Nvidia, are we going to see 220 for the first time since June? Are we going to see 220 Market cap is 5.3. 220 has 410,000 shares. 410,000 shares. You're going to have to wait someone to buy that. Okay, so the semis are going down today. It looks pretty apparent now. Nebius is down. Micron's down. AAOI is down. NVIDIA is one of the only semis that's up. And I've been the victim, as so many of you have, of semis up, software down, because many of us own names in the software space. I do not want to return the favor to the semiconductor investors. Like, that is not fun. So I don't want the next 6 months of software up, semis down every day, because A, I don't think that's healthy, because I feel like that's just all algorithmic pair trading. B, the semis will benefit from open source, closed source, more AI into the ecosystem, and so will the software companies, and so will the hyperscalers. So there's no need for this yin and yang to happen every single day. But today it absolutely looks like it's happening. The only semis that are up are large caps: TSM, Broadcom, NVIDIA, and Dell, which is not really a large cap. Well, take it, 400 billion is almost a large cap. And Micron is up like $1. Everything else is red. And then in SaaS world, everything is green except Cloudflare by $1 and Oracle by $2, which Oracle technically is in the semi space with data center. So you are seeing the opposite kind of happen right here in this early type of price action outside of NVIDIA. But then again, NVIDIA hasn't been trading with the semis all year, to be honest, because when they were running, NVIDIA was relatively flat. All right, we got 10 cents right here. Someone's got to buy a lot of NVIDIA. I think it's going to happen. 2 cents, 410,000 shares were just bought at 220. There it goes. And we are off to the races. We are back to the 220s. We are back to the 220s in the roaring 20s, baby. It was time. It has been 2 months. Too much market cap added to the hyperscalers without the one company benefiting from all of that, getting some love. Shopify, that's up 17. That is green. AAOI just flipped slightly green. S&P should really be loving NVIDIA going up, because NVIDIA is the largest component of the S&P 500. I do have NVIDIA in the draft. I forgot. I do have. That's this thing's finally moving now in the draft. There you go. All right, giving me a little bit of love right there. 775.87 on Mr. S&P. Zeta, she's moving, folks. 26.30. The thing about Zeta is we just need to normalize like the 25 to 30 range and get out of the teens, which has been stuck in all year. But once again, this is the fun part about researching companies, having them be stuck for a while, the market having a disconnect with, you know, the fundamentals, and being able to hopefully take advantage of that and then just sit back on days like this. Whether it was Palantir yesterday, which is going for 166, whether it's Zeta, which just got its first 10% day, I think, all year, whether it's NVIDIA, that so many of us have been patient on. 4% on NVIDIA. 4% on NVIDIA. I'll give you the exact number right here. 4% on NVIDIA is $219 billion in market cap. That's a lot of money coming into Mr. NVIDIA. ServiceNow getting some love. Broadcom trying to break 430. Wow. Lots of names that have just been disrespected. While Kratos, they've had a great earnings, absolutely crushed it. I know the stock got hit over the past couple months with the defense sentiment going down. But that's up 10%. Ondas, are we getting some love? This went from 14 to 6. Now it's at 8. If you snipe the lows around 6, 7, you are pretty damn green. Wow, is that comment real? Is this comment real? Folks, I think you guys are going to be happy. Or some of you guys are going to hate him and be upset. But look at that. Mr. Chris Patel just opened up a long on MU. All right, folks, here we go. If Micron goes back to 1,200, you will not hear the end of it from Chris Patel. You will not hear the end of it. If you're in Micron, you should want it to not go to 1,200 just to not hear his bragging once it gets to 1,200 for the next year. But look, honestly, I don't hate that. And I was talking about this yesterday. I've been looking at DRAM. I mean, look, memory is cheap. Like, as much as I don't want to hold it for the long term, it is cheap, dude. Micron probably should be, you know, a $1,200 to $1,500 stock. Like, if we're really being honest on the forward multiples, I don't want to hold it for 5 years, 100%. I can't hold. I would rather hold Shopify for 5 years, even if Micron outperforms, because I just don't know what's going to happen with Micron. But should it be below 900? I don't think so. Wow, Zeta, 2740. 2740. Okay, that one just got $1.40 in like 5 seconds. Last time we looked at it, it was at 26. NVIDIA 221. Wow, what a day. So you're seeing the market really give some love to names that have not participated all year. Palantir 2 days in a row. Palantir is almost break even for the year. Zeta, I think, is now well up for the year 27, 29. And then obviously NVIDIA getting some love. Nebula is still down about 3%. Micron just flipped green. What about CoreWeave? CoreWeave had a massive 20% day yesterday. CoreWeave's basically flat. Okay, so Nebius in particular is the one that's getting hit. Micron, there you go, breaking over 900. That's getting some love. And SanDisk, should we be at 1400? We are very closely above 1400, 1407. This feels like a blow off top. Again, we talked about some of the macro indicators that could make it a blow off top, but I just think given how ugly July was, I don't, June was the blow off top. I mean, we literally felt how ugly it got. I feel like this is a little bit more recovery. And, NVIDIA 220 is not euphoric at all, right? So Zeta at a $7 billion market cap for doing $2 billion in revenue does not feel euphoric. None of the software names feel crazy euphoric at all. I mean, the software names are just breaking even on the year, like Shopify. Shopify might be up year to date now. I think it probably should be. Shopify year to date. Is Shopify still down 7% this year after a 20% move today? Like, are those stocks signaling blow off the top? I don't know. Associated Press, Iran and Oman negotiators finalized draft Strait of Hormuz deal. The draft agreed to by Iranian and Omani negotiators awaits final approval from Iran's supreme leader, 2 regional officers told the AP on Wednesday. Maybe that was the headline that kind of got this little last candle in over the past 5 minutes on S&P. I mean, we kind of knew that news from yesterday, so that's kind of just reiterating the news that we heard about. AMD almost getting back to that 500 range. Now we need Trump to kind of confirm it. Chris buying MU is the top signal the last bears capitulated. I would agree with you on that if Chris was buying it at 1250. Or if anyone was buying it at 1250, right? Like Chris in particular, because he's been a little bit more bearish on the semiconductor names, but he's buying it down 30% from the highs. I think that's actually a bit more of a smart mean reversion play as a trade versus top blasting it. Again, Micron is still down substantially. So is Nebius. So is CoreWeave. So I think a lot of these names, again, you need for blow off the top. I feel like you really need names to top. And even all the software names are not at, forget all-time highs. They're not at 52-week highs. Even the hyperscalers are not even at 52-week highs. Like Microsoft was 550 July of 2025. So, you still have a lot of momentum that could be baked into these numbers. Wow, Zeta. What a freaking move. What a freaking move, folks. Congrats. 2809. Not bad. Not bad at all. I mean, it's nice to see it be rewarded. This is the name we've been talking about for a while. I wanted to buy call options on it yesterday, just like a different Palantir, but I got scared because I'm a little scaredy cat. So instead, yesterday, I said this on Tanner stream, but picked up 500 shares before the earnings at 23.69. So those shares are doing well, but this is a name that $17, $18, $19 was really the range where I think a lot of people started talking about it. And obviously it's at 28. I think the run to 30 is not that crazy if they continue the growth that they're putting up. 15% right here is what we're seeing. Yeah, shook babies. I felt good yesterday that I didn't buy the call options because then it was down 10% after hours. But, then you also realize that it's probably down for no reason. But then you don't know, right? If you have an expiration on it, what if the stock stayed down 10% for whatever reason? But it is nice to see it reversing. It is really nice to see it reversing. 28 on Zeta. I'll check resistance for 30. Shopify up 18%. That continues to be green. PMI comes in 54.5 versus 53.6. That's a beat. 54.5 versus 53.6. We have been getting incredible PMI, incredible ISM. The NASDAQ just crossed 30,000. And quite frankly, we've been getting some decent inflation reports from a PCE perspective. They're still up a lot year over year, but they're way lower than expectations, which is really what the Fed cares about at this point. Services PMI 54.6 versus 51.2. Composite PMI 54.5 versus 51.5. That's a double beat on PMI. Wow, OSS was down 15. Now it's only down 6. If this actually flips green, that would be quite impressive. And quite frankly, if we're in for another really green day on the S&P, I think everything that's red is going to start to get a little bit of love. Nebius only down a couple bucks. It was down almost 7%. AMD trying to get back to 500. RKLB just flipped green in the face of SpaceX. The fact that SpaceX is still down 10% shows you how much the market really didn't love those earnings, because you got a lot of stuff flipping green. But number two shows you how much the market is, willing to still give high beta momentum a chance today, like RKLB flipping green, even though RKLB is stuck usually trading with SpaceX. So you're seeing some divergence right there. Epsilera, they're going to have earnings today after the bell. Rubrik, that was up 2%. Disney had earnings. Disney is up 2%. Their earnings were okay, but, nothing to be super, super excited about. Not crazy, crazy growth, but Disney, Uber, both of those names, relatively strong earnings. Uber down 3% because of mobility growth not being strong. Disney up about 2.5%. Nvidia, are we still 220? We are still 220. We hit 221. Let's see if we can keep breaking through on Mr. 221. RKLB did win another big contract last night, which was important. This is the biggest bubble in history. You have to short it. Dude, June felt bubblish. There were plenty of reasons to feel that things were getting euphoric in June. You had random small caps go up 50% in a day, just because they said they were part of something in the AI semiconductor stack. I don't think we're in that macro anymore, or that market. On a day like this, if this was June, Nebius would be up 25% right now. Micron would be up 15%. We all went through those days in June where the semis got back-to-back 10% day. SMH would be up back-to-back 5% each, which means the semis would be up back-to-back 20, 30% each. That felt kind of crazy because although the earnings were good, we were really stretching the multiples and you had a lot of leverage in the system. I think the leverage is starting to get washed out, and we saw what happened with Leopold. That got washed out aggressively. 1.2 million South Koreans got liquidated, unfortunately, but nonetheless, leverage getting out of the system is a good thing. I don't know if it's as bubbly anymore. SK Hynix 155, as that continues to gap up as well. I have no idea what's going to happen with SanDisk earnings today. I really don't follow that company as well as one should when it comes to memory. I would say I know a bit more about Micron than them, but from my understanding, SanDisk is a bit more expensive than Micron, and their moat isn't as sophisticated as Micron's, but this is the best performing stock over the past 5 years. And it's in the same crunch as Micron. There is a massive supply demand imbalance when it comes to memory, and all of the memory names should benefit from it. Now, Micron's earnings growth has been significantly better, but also it's because Micron sells a lot more memory. Micron back to a $1 trillion market cap, but I think SanDisk is going to crush, even though I don't know every little nuance of their numbers, because every memory company is crushing. SK Hynix, Samsung crushed. Question is it baked in or not? And SanDisk is down from 2,300s to 1,400, fell below 1,000 at one point last week. Today, we're going to find out after hours if it is baked in. ABCL, that's down about 0.3% right there. Yeah, we have AAOI tomorrow. Hood finally catching a bid. There she goes, 95. Back to getting some love on Mr. Robinhood, which I don't think should be below 100 if we're seeing this type of bullish momentum. Micron right there, that's up 3%. Oklo's up 1%. Reddit flat on the day after getting a lot of move. Yes, Melly after the bell. Melly's a name I've been looking at for a while. Don't have a position in it, but I think it's kind of like Shopify. You just buy it and hold it, and you don't worry too much about the month-to-month moves on this. Effectively, the Amazon of Latin America, they don't have an AWS type of business, but they do have a payments business. That is where they're getting some of their margin from. They're the only company to grow revenue 30% for the past 27 quarters in the entire stock market, which is pretty incredible. NVIDIA losing 220 right there. Nebius, did we flip green? We are very close to flipping green. Okay, the semi is starting to participate. AMD. Oh, wow, it actually touched 500, then got rejected. AppLovin, this should be much higher. AppLovin 436, that's up 4% as well. As that's continuing to make a move. Bloom Energy. Yeah, I mean, look, all your typical semi names starting to flip a bit more green. If the S&P actually fully goes up 1%, it's going to be hard to imagine all the semis red today. A little bit of a red candle there on the S&P, but still up 1. They're still up half. Crypto at the same time. Okay, we were at 63 yesterday. At least we're at 64,000. At least it's somewhat higher than what it was before. Uber is still down 4%. Will Zeta keep this? I don't know, but as a long-term investor, I just wanted to get and close above 25 for the next 2 weeks. Like, we need some normalization of people willing to buy this thing over 25. So I don't know if it keeps the entire 15% move, but below 25 would be very annoying to me because it's basically been stuck in that doghouse for like a year. So this is where we need to see a breakout that gets respected. We need to see more volume come in. We have about 13 million shares traded in about 20 minutes. That's massive when their average volume is 8 million. We need to get that to like 30, 40 million shares traded and start getting a lot more liquidity into the stock. Palantir right here as well, 14 million shares traded, 163. As that's green. Meta, did anyone snipe the lows at 518 last week? Or 520 or 530? Almost back to 600 right here, and I think we would all agree at 600 it's still pretty cheap as well, right? Given the growth. Rocket Lab 76. Burry sold all of his Microsoft in a note he put out yesterday. He closed all of his, he closed some of his puts, but he rolled the others. He said he still has a Palantir short, but he closed his Palantir puts, which means I imagine he took a loss on that, if that's accurate. And he closes Oracle puts. Yeah, so he closed Palantir puts, closed Oracle puts, I think for a loss. He's holding Palantir still short. He rolled his NVIDIA puts from a $100 strike in January 2027 to a $100 strike in June 2027. I don't know if those extra 6 months will actually take NVIDIA down 50% from here, but that's what he's betting on. And then he sold all of his Microsoft calls. I mean, dude, if NVIDIA is low hundreds by June 2027, it means something went terribly wrong. So I don't know if that happens, but he's obviously buying more time because I think he's realizing it's not going to. Look, NVIDIA was going to go into the 120s, 130s. It had to happen 2 weeks ago when everything was collapsing. Like when it was, almost pushing below 180. And so, like now it's, I don't know. It's going to be a little tough. We're going to need it. And that's why I think he extended the time on his puts because it's not going to happen in 5 months by January 2027. Webull, that's getting some love today as well. As that was red in the pre-market, now that's green. I mean, all the brokers should be loving the action right here. July, you had volatility to the downside. They all make money. August, you're having volatility to the upside. They should all make money. Tesla, that's flat. Pinterest, look at it, Pinterest, dude. This one was down 15% yesterday. Even that's starting to recover. Like, when names that got beat up badly are starting to turn, it just means there's a lot of momentum that's ready to save some of these stocks. Which is kind of what you want to see, especially if the earnings weren't as bad to justify 15, 20% moves to the downside. Coherent right there, that's up 5% as well. Did CoreWeave sign a contract with SK Hynix today? I don't think so. CoreWeave signed a deal, but that deal was a deal that was reported a long time ago. If anyone knows if SK Hynix, let me know, was a deal. Oh, they signed a multi-year agreement with an SK Hynix subsidiary for priority access to enterprise SSD capacity. Okay, so yeah, directionally you're right, technically, but not like a massive monster agreement that I think would, be a massive headline for the stock. 93 CoreWeave flips green. SoFi, which fell 15% on earnings, almost touching 19. I mean, once again, some of this stuff is just a game of patience. As annoying as it is, it's a game of patience. And whether it's Zeta, whether it's SoFi, whether it's CoreWeave over the past couple of weeks, whether it's NVIDIA, obviously, whether it's not any of the hyperscalers, like patience has been really important this year to see things happen. Micron getting a couple red candles, but still above 900. Micron didn't go above 900 yesterday. It was stuck around that 895 range. So this is actually nice to see it breaking out above and being at 915. Yeah, for those saying the mic is more quiet than normal, I'll fix it after. I'll see what I can do. I don't know what happened today, but for some reason it became a little weird. If it's still bad after hours, then I'll just buy a new mic tomorrow. We'll fix it. SMH, that's up 1%. Kratos, that is up 10. Kyle, thanks for the super chat. What is your short-term thoughts on Palantir? Up, down, sideways? Big thanks for everything. I would simply hope that Palantir can normalize. Same thing I said with Zeta, 150 to 160. Realistically, I'd be happy 140 to 160. I think, look, Palantir is trading almost at a $400 billion market cap. And as much as I love the company, at the end of the day, I don't know if the market's willing to give it a $700-800 billion market cap, which is, pushing into that $200 range. So I think it's going to have to chill out for a bit. If it doesn't, I'll be very happy. If it does, I'll be grateful because this year has taught patience and gratitude. And it's much better seeing Palantir every day at 160, stuck in the 160s, than it is in the 120s. So I think sideways is fair. And then, the next catalyst would be another earnings and honestly a rate cut, which would really help a lot of these stocks. But we got to see if we actually get that. Nebius, full on reversal here. 217 to 226 coming back. SPY also coming back. Took a couple red candles, almost 776 again. And then you're seeing the hyperscalers continue to be okay. Amazon, Bezos sold, so I think that's why the stock is getting hit. 271, $4 billion worth of stock is what he sold. But, at the end of the day, he's going to always take his profits. The cloud business is growing like crazy, which is the real reason for people to be excited about the stock. EOSE, can someone explain to me what the hell is going on with this name? Which is starting to get some recovery, but it was down 20%. Now it's down 13%. This stock has had two massive 30 to 40% drawdowns after earnings this year. They lost $1.20. Street thought they would lose 22 cents. Why are they losing 445% more on net income that the street thought? Is the street getting the expectations horribly wrong, or is EOSC's management just terrible execution? And I know 2 quarters ago when the stock fell 50%, people were really upset at management. This is supposed to be one of the premier energy AI infrastructure plays. Same thing with T1 Energy, which has also been kind of stuck in the solar space, down about 2%. And I'm asking because I'm like, is EOSC an opportunity? Is $1 billion market? Is this a small cap that could get a massive energy contract for a data center build out and then boom, it becomes a $20 stock? Or is this just a fantasy that's being sold to shareholders? Amazon 275, Nebius trying to stay above 226. Palantir getting some red candles. Nvidia, do we have 222? We don't yet. Let me check resistance, but we are close. Chris says Micron needs to split their stock. Guys, for the next however many weeks Chris is in Micron, every time he gets on the show, you're going to hear bullish memory now. It's going to be bullish memory from Chris. It's yeah, I think if Micron splits their stock, you'll get a lot more people interested, more option flow. Memory is actually really important, guys. It is a commodity, but it's not that much of a commodity. I mean, it's commoditized, but it's a special commodity. This is what we're going to hear now for the next 5 weeks. 222, 101,000 shares. 101,000 shares at 222 is what we've got. Granny Shots is trading at is that an all-time high on Granny Shots? Tom Lee's fund year to date is up 12%, basically matching the S&P. And all-time, it's at an all-time high, 37% since inception. What is in Granny Shots? Granny Shots Holdings. We haven't looked at this in a while. I think he actually put Zeta in one of the subsidiaries of Granny Shots a few months ago. I don't think it's in the main portfolio, but it is part of the funds they were buying. Nebius, 224 now. SoFi, 1873. Okay, so this is what's in Granny Shots. This is in order from highest weighting to lowest weighting. Arista, that's the highest weighting of the ETF. GE Aerospace, Robinhood, Packaging Corp of America, Palantir. Palantir's top 5. Probably got there because of the run over the past couple of days. JP Morgan, Microsoft, PNC, Eaton, AMD, ServiceNow, Bank of New York Mellon, American Express, Eli Lilly, Goldman Sachs, Deere, Union Pacific, Monster, KLA Corporation, Amazon, UNH, Apple, Air Products, Texas Pacific Land, Caterpillar, Vistra, Broadcom, Philip Morris, Northrop Grumman, Google, GE Vernova, Cadence, Meta, Quanta, NVIDIA, Costco, Netflix, Tesla, Oracle, MicroStrategy. So you have a decent amount of those large caps there, but you do have some of those smaller names that have done very well, and some of the software names that have started to perform as well. Zeta 2775, S&P 500 775. Netflix, which has been stuck for a while, I think it bottomed at around 67 a month ago. Now it's at 74, but it has been in that 70 to 80 range for a while. What are those stocks? Those are the stocks in granny shots. So he has 131 million in Arista. Arista's having a great day from these earnings. 120 in GE Aerospace, 120 in Robinhood, 118 in Packaging Corp, and then 116 in Palantir. 115 in Microsoft. So definitely a lot of large caps here, but you have ServiceNow, you have Apple, you have Amazon, you have Broadcom, you have TJX, you have Google, NVIDIA. But Robinhood, GE, Arista, Packaging Corp, and Palantir are your top 5 for granny. Okay, so ISM services and PMI, that was a beat. We need to avoid the 10 a.m., 10:30 dump. Let's see if we can. SPY did get a red candle right there. Hopefully, all the semis just got candles, including NVIDIA. NVIDIA's still up 4%. Well, first 20 minutes were pretty green, so we might have to give some of that back. Ondas 890. Gold, okay, gold was up today. Gold's up 2%, silver's up 4%. I think because of some of the geopolitical stuff coming out of Iran. The Israel warning people in Lebanon to leave is kind of contradictory to Trump saying we're going to get a deal. And I think gold could be up if we get a deal, because then you have more risk on momentum, but gold could also be up as a hedge if we're going to have more escalation in the Middle East. So I think there could be a couple reasons why it's up, but you are seeing that get a move that it really hasn't had 2-3% for a while. Here's a little bit more coverage on PMI, and then we'll get into some of these other macro points we have.
Overall capex numbers on SpaceX were even higher, 18.4 billion, and the CFO, the finance chief, Brett Johnson, said that you can expect these kind of numbers over the next 2 quarters to be similar. And you know how, guys, every so often we take a look at just how much spending is going into AI and how it is driving the economy. Those are the charts that we have for you today, just after another round of earnings and just another round of huge capex numbers. Here's a good one, okay? This is data centers construction as a percent.
This is bullish. U.S. removes Iran-related sanctions. Folks, they are not removing the sanctions if they weren't getting ready for a deal. This is bullish. Bessent said it yesterday. Rubio said it yesterday. Trump said it yesterday. I mean, oil was down 7% yesterday for a reason. U.S. removes Iran-related sanctions as per the Treasury website. I think it might be happening. We got to see, but I think it might be happening.
Percentage of overall non-residential construction projects in this country, and this is the numbers as of June 2026. The number of money spent on data center construction is almost 10% of total spent on private non-residential construction projects. Look at the jump. I mean, this number was 2% in November 2022. That was the month that ChatGPT was released to the public. So it just shows you how much of a driver it is for growth and for spending on construction. And just from Wolf Research, an updated look at tech as a percent of U.S. nominal GDP. And, clearly we're at levels we haven't seen before, 5%. And that, it shows you it's driving a lot of the action, and the spending doesn't seem to be letting up anytime soon.
Say he thinks it's half of GDP growth?
I don't know. Did he say that much?
Did he say that 50%? I thought he said that.
I mean, you got
there
overall nominal GDP running near 8. Now, that said, you're running deficit.
And again, the GDP growth primarily is coming from CapEx, which is why the CapEx beneficiaries and the CapEx spenders, if they're responsible for this economy growing the way it is, you'd imagine their stocks to start to reflect that value, which is happening. Now, here's the thing. We've had a massive move over the past 2 days, really the past 3 days since Monday. I think there's definitely a legitimate argument to say that this Iran news is priced in, because, I mean, dude, we're at all-time highs on the S&P. $74 trillion of assets in total value. It was like it was at like a 63 trillion like 4 weeks ago. So we've had a massive move, and in the past 3 days, S&P is up almost 3.5%. So from that perspective, could it be a sell the news as soon as Trump tweets that we have a deal? Maybe. If we actually rip into 7,800, I mean, it would be very exciting. But we're gonna have to see if that plays out. Yes, this headline is real. Samsung and SK Hynix are testing Chinese chip making tools to hedge against the US. Samsung and SK Hynix don't have to worry about the Trump administration like stopping them personally from using different Chinese manufacturers. Micron and SanDisk and other domestic manufacturers do have to worry about that. And quite frankly, you know, it's in their best interest to have more of a diversified supply chain. I don't know if that's bad for like the supply demand imbalance for memory. I don't think anything's changing that narrative, but it potentially could give them pricing power, Samsung and SK Hynix versus Micron and SanDisk when it comes to their supply chain. I think it would be minuscule in terms of the actual impact that would have on earnings or like margins, but nonetheless, you know, the US can't really do anything about it. But the US has been pretty stringent on making sure that Chinese memory, Chinese semiconductor devices like the transceivers that helped all the photonics names yesterday go up don't enter the United States, which likely will continue. Oil, where's oil? Not down a lot, but it's down, 75.36. It is down. We need that to get to the very, very low 70s. And if it does, I think we're going to be in a good spot. Zeta right there, 28. It lost 28, got it again for the second time or third time today. It's actually it's impressive how much strength it's putting up right here. Rocket Lab, that's up 2.7. Meta 593. CoreWeave 92.25. That one's still green. And yeah, we do have the jobs reports on Friday. That'll be important. The jobs report we got this morning, for those asking for the cactus link, I'm putting it right there in the chat. The jobs report this morning was 44,000 jobs still added, which was lower than the 65,000 expected. But if it was like 70,000, people would have said there's too much inflation. So technically, it was a good jobs report, and it still proves that private hiring is not slowing down. So I think all around we are getting a lot of different arguments to be more bullish. $30 resistance for Zeta, by the way, is nothing. It's 1,000 shares. $29 resistance is 3,000 shares. There are not many levels of resistance here if she wants to really break through. She just needs the volume, but there's nothing stopping it from like actually meaningfully breaking out. Robinhood right there, 94.99. And Nvidia, again, 100,000 shares at 222, but it busted through those 400,000 shares at 221. What about Micron at 920? Let's see. Again, Micron, ever since the drawdown, has been kind of playing in a range every day. Honestly, Micron's been behaving like Nvidia. A little bit more volatile because there's less shares outstanding, but stuck within like a $30, $40 range. Nvidia stuck within like a $10 range. 920 on Micron. Yeah, there's nothing. It's like 4,000 shares. The real big resistance for Micron, the next level that's like meaningful, 950 at 30,000 shares, which isn't a lot. So could see it touch 920. Dell, are we in the 400s? Whoa, when did Dell get to 480? This thing was definitely 380 last week. I feel like I haven't looked at Dell all week. That means SMCI should be at least 30, right? Yeah, SMCI 31. Dell topped at 490 a month ago. So, I mean, talk about a V shape, right? Or does it hit resistance at 490 again? But when the S&P is up the way it's up, I mean, everything is going to get some love. A-Lab, they had a good earnings. Same with Arista. I didn't get to go deep in the earnings to see why they got hit, but Arista losing a lot of the pump from yesterday, only up 2. It was up 10. Pinterest still down 3. Open Door, is anyone still caring about Open Door at all? I'm just curious. Do people actually care about this thing? I didn't see anything in the earnings that was impressive on Open Door. SpaceX down 8. It was down 12. AMD still down 5. AMD just not easily breaking above 500. Kratos up 8. And then Arista up 2. Uber down 5. It's going to 82. I really did not like the Open Door movement last year. I really didn't like it. I felt like the way it happened was just someone who was trying to make a name for themselves, and they ended up promoting horrible crypto scams once they got all the attention. And the fact that management embraced some of these influencers, I mean, like if you're a management of corporate board and you're going to embrace someone talking about your stock and company, you have to be very selective and careful. And you're embracing people that are launching crypto ETFs full of nonsense. Like the whole thing felt just so scummy to me, so scummy. And at its core, stock's 50 cents and you're promising it's going to get to 82. It's like, what type of crowd do you think you're going to attract? You're going to attract people who are just like, okay, it's going to the moon. There's nothing fundamental. There's nothing anything about what's actually happening at the company. It's just all bullshit. I don't think that stuff should be rewarded in retail. I really don't. I think that gives retail investors a horrible rap, and it makes the stock market look stupid when stuff like that gets attention. And the company hasn't executed, which is why the stock, really hasn't made a move right here. App 11, that's up 4%. Bloom Energy, that's up 4% as well. How did someone like that get away with it? I'm trying to figure that out because I don't understand how you can launch scam after scam after scam and, everything goes okay. It's like, I don't get it, dude. I don't get it. One of the board members had a public bet with a random guy on Twitter that he will give him $100,000 if Open Door is not bigger than Shopify in 1 year. It's been a year. Open Door is not bigger than Shop. I really hope he gives that $100,000 because if you're going to say that publicly, you deserve to lose that $100,000. Like that's just like that. Tell me that's not pumping the stock. Yeah, my $2 billion stock will be bigger than a $150 billion company in a year. Let's do a $100,000 bet. And you're on the board of the company? What type of nonsense is going on? Like what type of genuine nonsense is going on? And the CEO's okay with their board member actually making these. If I was a CEO, I would have voted to get that person fired off the board immediately. Like what? You're gambling with our stock price with a random account on Twitter? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like the whole story is just unbelievable. And then the execution, has not matched up to any of the reality. Rocket Lab right there, 76.85 up 3% as that continues to go green as well. Stera down 7 after going up yesterday. Oh, did NVIDIA hit 222? Did we do it? Okay, there we are. 100,000 shares bought up at 222 for NVIDIA. All right. I mean, look, it's a hell of a reversal from last week. A week changes everything. Why are you guys saying Trump is trading SanDisk on earnings? Did Barron Trump tweet about SanDisk or something? I think he owns it in his financial disclosures. He owns SanDisk, but he owns a lot of those names. Micron should be running with it. Micron, there you go, 921. NVIDIA 222. Let's see 223 resistance. How bad is that? Oh, it's nothing. It's 50,000 shares. Guys, a lot of the hard work was getting from 200 to 220. Getting out of that 190 jail we were in. It's not going to be that hard to go up if the volume's there. If the market wants to chill out, then it'll chill out, but $10 day on NVIDIA's $250 billion in market cap. Added today. Piper Sandler kept their ASTS rating at $100. Back into the 70s. It was down 5%. Where's IREN? Okay, Iren hasn't had a massive recovery like Nebius and CoreWeave. CoreWeave, I think, has had the best one. Actually, Nebius from 147. Well, let's do the math right here. So Nebius 225. That was a 53% move. CoreWeave 93 minus 58. CoreWeave about a 40% move. Okay, so Nebius has actually had the best recovery. It's just past 2 days, CoreWeave has broke out a bit higher. Booking crushed it as well. I mean, dude, the consumer is doing okay. Bank of America CEO was on today and he said, like, yeah, the consumer's fine. Like, we don't see issues with the consumer. And you're hearing it from multiple CEOs now making the argument that we're starting to see spending converge, but we're not starting to see spending slow down. And as long as that continues to be the case, then we should be getting some momentum. By the way, we had Kashkari on today. He did make the case that rates should probably be moving up. Here's a little bit of what he said. And, unfortunately, this is somewhat more of how the broader Fed is thinking.
Point. The Fed's job is to get inflation back down to our 2% target. Corporate earnings are through the roof. They're doing great. The consumer is hanging in there. The labor market is hanging in there. I look at this constellation and I say, what evidence do I have that monetary policy is particularly restrictive right now? And so I argued now is the time to start slowly moving up as we get more data in.
There were some other dissenters with you. You've dissented before.
I have.
By the way, this was really, though, the first time with Kevin Warsh now in the seat. I'm curious just what your thought was about that, because there is a view that, sometimes a new chair comes in, may have a particular view. Sometimes there might be like a honeymoon period. It doesn't seem like you were giving him the honeymoon period.
Well, he said publicly many times that he likes a good family fight. He said that publicly. He said that internally. And I'll just say he said to me, do what you think is the right thing to do for the economy. And I said, I really appreciate that.
So tell me how it happens, because at least historically, the Fed chair has called around before a meeting and said, what are you going to do? What's your plan? And I assume it's tried to either talk you into or out of wherever
That's not exactly how those calls go. So usually those calls go, and Kevin, and we appreciate it, Chairman Warsh has continued the tradition of reaching out to everybody in advance. We have a discussion about how I'm seeing the economy, how he's seeing the economy. We talk about we might see things similarly or differently. And then I say, hey, here's where I'm likely coming out in terms of my policy recommendation. In this case, I was undecided. I wanted to go into the meeting and hear all the arguments on both sides. And I ultimately decided that raising rates was the right thing to do. I wasn't pounding the table that we needed to raise now, and if we waited till September, that would be too late. But my conclusion, based on everything I listened to, was that it's better to get going.
Okay. Is your expectation that in September, given what you know about the other members and where we are, that we will have a rate hike?
I'm not going to speculate on what the committee might do. We have a lot of data that we're going to get in. We're going to have 2 more inflation prints between now and September. A lot of news potentially to come from the Middle East. Data centers, everything else we're going to look at before we decide.
But just to go back on this a little bit, we just talked to Brian Moynihan. His team thinks there could be 3 rate hikes by the end of the year. What is the Neil Kashkari view of the world?
Well, that's not impossible in my view. If inflation continues to move sideways or even get worse from here, then I think we're going to have to start gradually adjusting interest rates to bring things back down. The conundrum that we're facing is traditional economic analysis says if there's a one-time supply shock, monetary policy should just let that flow through the economy, don't necessarily react to it. But now we've had a series of successive supply shocks over 4 or 5 years. Inflation has been frustratingly persistent. It's our job to get inflation back down.
I think Joe's got a question back in New York. Joe?
Yeah, it struck me, Neil. It's good to see you. And I was listening, and
what's really interesting about what he's saying right here is he's not pounding the table to get a rate hike, but the problem is he is pounding the table to get a rate hike because he's one of the only people that, there's only 3 of them that actually agree that we should be getting a rate hike. So if there's only a few of them saying let's hike, the majority obviously are saying we're not. And so the question becomes why? And it once again goes back to that same argument that the balance of consumer goods inflation is outweighing some of the structural problems with energy inflation. But once again, if oil really does drop into the 60s, and based on the U.S. removing sanctions from IRGC-linked entities, which we have an update on here right now, energy inflation should fall dramatically, which should completely change the idea of a rate hike. A couple of new updates. So the U.S. Treasury removed the counterterrorism sanctions from 2 aircraft and 3 airlines tied to the IRGC. The airline was sanctioned in January of 2024, signaling a partial easing for some of the IRGC-linked aviation assets. Yeah, dude, there's no way we are taking off sanctions that we had for the past 2 years on airlines associated with the IRGC because, we just want to, we're bored. We're trying to be friendly. Like it obviously has to do with something more strategic around the foundational elements of getting to a point where we can secure a deal. And hopefully that will help the broader market. Zeta right there, 28.17. Micron losing 9.26, but still 9.16. NVIDIA, 221. Again, guys, for the mic, I'm sorry. I think it's probably time I need to buy a new mic. For those saying you need a cloud filter, I have a cloud filter, so I don't know what's going on right here. I hate to blame StreamYard, but honestly, I think it's StreamYard's fault. So I'll try to fix it by the afternoon. Netflix 74, Granny Shots, that's still up. Penguin Solutions, that's down. Tesla's down. Let's hear from early SpaceX investor on how they're justifying the numbers they saw on the call.
Which has been a catalyst for advancements in private space flights. Good to have you. Peter, let's just start off. Give me your reaction to the idea of $1 trillion in revenues from this company would be 10 times at least where they are right now in an ARR. And I guess, even chance that they could get there sooner.
Well, if anybody can do it, Elon can. I think this has the potential to really be the first $10 trillion company out there and growing. He's building civilizational level infrastructure. The challenge is I don't think the market knows how to value this company. It's not a company. It's really 4 different businesses that are wrapped into a vertical. And you have to look at each individually. And, you're going to hear from me the bull case because I'm a huge believer in what they're building. If you want to run down each of those, we can do that.
Well, I would like to, just tell me when it comes to this $1 trillion number. I mean, it's not that far away. Obviously, we can all do math. What gives you the confidence based on what you're seeing that they can have a 10-fold increase in revenues from where they are right now?
Well, let's look at this. The first business they're in is global communications, right, with Starlink. Starlink is going to be delivering global, gigabit connectivity to the entire planet, billions of individuals. They are just making a dent in that regard right now. And then they're going direct satellite to cell phone. And as Gwen said on the earnings call yesterday, that's a $600 billion level of revenue potential, and they expect to take a chunk of that. If you can be driving anywhere on the planet, in the middle of the mountains or in the middle of, the outback and get cell phone connectivity, that's the service I'm going to want to use on a global basis. So the telecom industry on its own has the potential to deliver a large chunk of that. The second business that they're in is as a hyperscaler delivering AI. They've already signed up $28 billion of annualized ARR in terms of revenue for that business. And they're building out faster than anybody else is doing it. They announced yesterday there'll be 2 gigawatts of compute at the end of this year and shooting for upwards of 10 gigawatts by next year. And that business alone is where they're going to be having probably the greatest amount of revenue, especially as they go beyond that to building orbital compute. And surprisingly, Elon said they're going to be launching their first AI satellites in partnership with NVIDIA in 2027. Right? Much faster than anybody thought they would. And if they hit their numbers, we're talking about a infrastructure of AI compute in space that's going to be serving all of the hyperscalers because no one's going to be building that fast. Then they go to chips, finally to space.
Yeah, this is going to be very expensive. The numbers now.
Again, the broader issue here, guys, is like when he says the market doesn't understand how to value the company and there's all these different moving parts of the company, that's fine. But like the problem is the market is looking at the valuation of the company and saying, hey, like, it's not like we're not giving it a premium here. It's not like we don't believe in the potential future. It's just some of these price targets are incredibly aggressive to get sort of the momentum that SpaceX is calling for. Zeta 28.27 doing a really nice job holding on to 28. 28.42 was the high for today. If we break that, maybe 28.50 is next. Broadcom right there, 421. But you are getting somewhat of recovery, 109 to 115. Maybe there's enough hype and momentum for the stock to like hold on to the 110s to 130 range. Even as it doesn't have to go below 100, doesn't have to break out above the 140s, 150s, especially with more shares being unlocked. But $1 trillion in revenue in 2029 is just going to take some time to believe that the trajectory for that is as massive as it is. Now, the potential is there. I don't think anyone can doubt that. And, that's why the stock trades at the multiple that it trades at. Caterpillar, that's up another 2% as well. As that continues to go green. NVIDIA, do we have 222? We are trying to get back there again. Zeta, all right, new intraday high. Again, 29, I don't think is out of the question if the volume comes in right here. We just got to break above 28.50, which would be very, very, very nice. Bitcoin, relatively flat. ASTS, that one trying to get some recovery. Tessie's been stuck. Tessie has been stuck for a while here. Tesla's trying. Tesla 324, NVIDIA, again, also kind of that 220 range has it stuck. Just below 222. Yeah, silver and gold, there's got to be a different reason why silver and gold are up as much as they're up. Because I'm thinking it's the Iran thing, but why do you guys think silver? We had a day on silver and gold both up 4% in the past month? I feel like it's been a minute. 62.47 on silver, 42.37 on gold. Inflation hedge. Korean government buying gold. China. Well, China's been buying gold for a long time though, right? We are not having Technical Tuesday this week. We will have it next week. Again, Jason, he's been traveling all week. He's been at an event in New York. And yesterday we had AMD. But also, TT makes sense after the earnings so that we can actually look at how the market reacted to it. The yen collapsing. I feel like that would be a little bit more bearish for gold, though. Like the yen carry trade potentially would. It would be more bearish for tech than gold, so that's fair. But it's definitely not having the run that it had back in January when it obviously made a massive, massive move. Micron 915. Who else is buying memory here? Who's buying memory? Micron, call it 850 to 900. 850 to 950. Who's buying, really, allocating every week to build a higher memory position? Because I feel like either you're doing it for the first time here, or you've had a massive position for a while and you're like, screw it, I'm just going to add. Or you bought at 1200 and you're DCing. But I feel like it's more of the newcomers. Decent chunk of people. DRAM, testing it. Scorch said he bought 20,000 shares of Hynix at 140. I feel like DRAM is the safest way to do it, dude. You just get access to the whole sector. And the internal nuances between Seagate and Micron kind of balance themselves out. Bought 2x Micron yesterday. Dude, the bull market comes back. The leverage is coming back. I feel like leverage is literally just human nature at this point. It's literally just human nature. No matter how much leverage wrecks you, stock goes up 20% a day, you're like, you know what? I'm going to be up 40%. But technically, if the stock's down as much as it is, then maybe this is the actual opportunity to... the time to apply leverage, whether it's through options or margin, is when it's a bear market, right? That's when you lever up and you're like, I'm getting a great deal. I'm paying a small interest rate to borrow capital, or I get to control more shares with calls. The problem is people tend to buy options when everything's going up because that's when it feels safer, because the stock is going up, so you're thinking, all right, it's going to keep going up, so I'm going to buy an option or take on margin to amplify my leverage. And really, it's the bear market. That's why in 2022, 2023, for people that bought leaps, like if I knew what a leap was on Palantir, if I knew what a leap was in general, I would have bought a lot of leaps on Palantir versus shares. I didn't know what an option call was. Like I really didn't find out until like the end of 23, early 2024. And even then, I wasn't fully comfortable with it. But like, because that was the time when those stocks were like 10, 15 bucks to be like, all right, I can apply some leverage here. At 160, I'm not buying leaps on Palantir. Like you just don't know if it has the ability to make that massive move. Qs just went red. Okay, very slightly red, but we are well above 700. We were at 650 last week on the Qs, so that has changed pretty decisively. Bank of America did raise their hood target from 132 to 140. Axios says the U.S. decision to lift sanctions is not related to Iran, but rather to Iraq. Is that why the Qs went red? This is the hard part about this Iran situation. And every time you think you're getting closer to something, you get a headline that denies. Like that Israel-Lebanon headline today was very annoying because that just signals escalation, and that's not what you want to see. Now, granted, even if the U.S. is removing sanctions for Iraq, they're still doing it in a way that eases up tensions in the Middle East, given Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi have been victims of Iranian drone strikes. So it still feels like there's a world of potential that leads to more negotiations there. Evan says, I'd rather buy CoreWeave than Micron. Yeah, I am a bigger fan of the NeoClouds than the memory names. But I also can't deny that memory is probably cheap. All right, you're seeing some bigger red candles come across the board. Your semis are going red. NVIDIA's losing a few bucks. Zeta's losing 28. SoFi still slightly green on the day. So maybe that headline could be causing this. Even though ISM and PMI were still pretty damn good. U.S. Department of Energy crude oil inventories comes in at, this is actually good, at positive 2.4 million. The estimate was negative 1.5. And the previous was negative 7 million. This is week over week. This should be good for oil. This is more supply. This should not be bearish. PMI, ISM, and crude oil inventories all in the right direction. Yeah, maybe Jane Street is back. Maybe they did not have enough fun in July because everything was going one direction. And they were like, you know what? We need to have everything be choppy again for us to make our money. J.D. Vance is holding a task force for fraud with members of Congress right now. If I was a reporter at that task force, I would raise my hand and say, Mr. Vance, did you know there's a meme coin that went down 99%? Would you classify that as fraud? Do you know someone in the White House launched the meme coin that went down 99%? And his wife also. Hers was 98%, a little bit better. I wonder if he says that is fraud or not. I wonder so. S&P 774. Here's all the comments. Amid TDS, amid TDS. This is a good thing. This is a good thing because there's some days it's like, wow, Amit just like he loves Trump. He's diehard MAGA. And then I put those comments in there. And then all the people that think I have TDS come out. You know, this is what it means to be balanced and neutral. I give the Trump haters some love some days, and I give the Trump fanboys some love other days. That's what I got to do. That's what I have to do, so you guys never know who I voted for. You guys still don't know who I voted for. You guys think you know who I voted for, but you still don't actually know. Like, would you be willing to bet your life on it is the question. Have I given that much evidence? Because I don't think it's that obvious. I really don't. Meta 592, Microsoft 49. It just means you're bipolar. voted for Modi. Dude, do you guys know what's happening in India? Because my mom's been obsessed with this story. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but essentially the the guy who controls education in India has been like super corrupt. And kids, high school kids, college kids, middle school kids, they've actually been protesting in India. Yeah, it's called the cockroach revolution because the Supreme Court justice called all these like kids cockroaches and stuff. And like there was a guy who didn't eat for 25 days to prove his point that we need to have a less corrupt education system. And Modi, the prime minister, didn't say anything for like 3 weeks until he finally one day posted, that he supports all the kids and their movement and fighting for their rights. And he just got clowned because, you can't respond a month later to what's happening. So I haven't gotten that deep into it, but like literally the entire country. I mean, India's not had like a sort of democratic process of civil disobedience in a long time. And then obviously, because they haven't had protests in a while, you've had policemen that have killed people and beat them with sticks and tear gas and all that stuff. So a lot of civil unrest, but India's been having a moment recently. And they haven't had to deal with, America's dealt with protests for like the past 10 years with all the different social issues we've had. This is the first time in India. NVIDIA 219 losing 220 right there. So again, I don't know all the context about it. All I know is that very basic headline about the kids protesting the corrupt education system. I can't even say I fully have an opinion on it because I really haven't done any research, but when I went home last week, my mom was like, do you know what's happening in India? I was like, no. And that's when she told me how crazy the country's going about it. Micron 903, damn dude, 920 to 903. Every day, up and down 30 or 40 bucks. It's been going. How can someone survive 25 days of fasting? Dude, look it up. They literally took him from where, people had to pick this guy up from where he was protesting and force him to go to the hospital and plug the IV into him just to keep him alive. Like it's a big story. American media hasn't covered it too much, but it's a pretty big story. Yeah, Micron, 30 bucks up, 30 bucks down every day. Chris is going to be a bear soon on Micron. Dude, Chris, if Micron goes to 850, we need you to double down, bro. Can't flip-flop on this one. You got to hold on to it. Uber, down 5. Disney. Why do people buy Disney, dude? I don't want to go on my Disney rant again, but like, why does the market see any value in Disney? Outside of the parks, I don't get it, bro. I do not get Disney. I've never understood it. This thing has done nothing for 5 years. And it's just like Bob Iger's guys down. Actually, sorry, it did do something for 5 years. It went down 40%. This is like a blue chip stock. Like, why? There's nothing exciting about Disney Plus. The parks business is okay, but the buybacks aren't interesting. The dividend's not interesting. Mickey Mouse is not going to be relevant in 30 years. Like, I don't know. I don't like it. I just don't like the media side of those businesses as the form of making a ton of money. Spider-Man just set a record. Yeah, like they'll have their hits here and there, but sustainable growth at scale. By the way, have people seen Spider-Man? Because I haven't seen it yet. But apparently, dude, it did $1 billion in the box office in a weekend. It was more than The Odyssey. It's making me want to watch it if it was that special. Nebius now losing 220. But again, they'll have their big hits here and there. I would not want to own Disney for the next 5 years. At all. Like, there's no part of me that's like, yeah, this is the thing that I want to be a part of. Nebius loses 220, Micron loses 900. Every day, these two stocks, they have been moving in unison, and they pop with each other, and then they dump around the same time. S&P also losing some love right here, 773, actually getting some pretty decent red candles right there. It was mid. Do people actually watch it? I know Tom Holland's in it, but I still have not seen it yet. Odyssey was still pretty good, though. I still enjoyed Seeing Odyssey. Fastly holding up. Yeah, you're having your CDNs. Wow, Fastly 26 today. Okay, how about Akamai? Next meetup in India to protest. I would like to go back to India just because I love being there, but again, when I barely understand American politics, dude. So it's going to be hard for me to get deep into another country's politics. 4 million of puts just got bought on the Qs right now. So you do have some bearish option flow coming in. Akamai down 1%. SanDisk, wow, what a flip. This thing was +3, down 4. Is it just me? Is this happening every day with the semis now? Ever since the Leopold blowout, we got a 30 to 35%, for some companies, 40% reversal from the lows. And then and then every day it's just been up and down in a range. I mean, many of them acting like NVIDIA. It's just their volatility has a higher range because they have less shares outstanding, so their stock prices are greater. Mitt doesn't even know where Hawaii is, let alone Indian politics. Exactly. Most of my mind share is to the stock market every day. Like, honestly, at night when I have time to think about something else, it's quite relaxing because the majority of the day is like this update, this headline, this earnings. So it's hard to really dive into so many other topics like geography, which means you forget where certain U.S. states are. Its dreams are green and red candles. I have had CEOs in my dreams. It's kind of crazy, dude. Sometimes, yeah, I've told you guys about it. You wake up and Vlad was in your dreams, and you're like, "What is going on, bro? Like, why? Like, it's kind of crazy sometimes." Okay, what other macro updates do we have? We got the ISM data. We got SpaceX. Al Jazeera. Any closure of reopening the Strait of Hormuz depends on measures taken by Washington. A senior Iranian official told Al Jazeera that only 1 or 2 remaining issues are left to reach an agreement, and then they can be resolved. That feels bullish if the Iranians are now telling the Middle Eastern news sources that there's only a few things left to get to a deal. I believed him all year, or at least since April when the initial ceasefire. I actually legit believe that this is going to be the deal. And the reason for that is because I think, once again, Trump can't afford for that 10-year to spike above 5%. We have to refinance about $10 trillion in debt by the end of the year. Just at some point, you have to put an end to this. And he's not talking with the violent rhetoric that he was talking with last week. I mean, last week it legit looked like boots were going on the ground. I'm going to bomb the effing shit out of them. You've not heard any of that for the past 72 hours. And I think maybe this is the time for things to move. Amit thinks India is a 2-hour flight. Okay, that's disrespectful. All right. That is disrespectful. That is very disrespectful to my intelligence around some level of geography. Yeah, maybe Taco Wednesday. You haven't learned your lesson yet. Dude, but how long can it go? I'm open to being wrong. I've been wrong every time that Trump said we had a deal. But even though I was wrong, he bought the freaking dip into strength, and it worked. So, yes, we've been wrong. The S&P's at all-time high. So, you could have been wrong. Here's the thing. You could have been. There was that hedge fund QVX that exploded back in April because their founder is super anti-Trump. His entire online persona is not about owning a hedge fund and talking about markets. It's all about shitting on Trump. And they got blown up because they got so bearish in March because of the Iran stuff, and they got squeezed out of their shorts. So even if people have been wrong about the war ending, if you've been buying on the assumption that it will end, you have been rewarded for that. And now with the hyperscalers and software coming back, you've really been rewarded for buying. But at some point, is this really going into the midterms? I feel at some point it's over. Upstart, by the way, down 5%. Yeah, that's where TDS becomes a bit crazy, because if you're managing professional money and you hate Trump and you're going to short the market just so you feel good that the reason the market's going down is because Trump is causing some unnecessary war, and then you can go out publicly and be like, we made so much money because we shorted the worst president in history, without like actually like understanding the dynamic of Trump and psychoanalyzing how much this guy loves to save things when they collapse and he loves to cause the chaos, which is when you dive into the dip. Like, if you're managing professional money, you've got to know that stuff about the administration. You can't get your political beliefs to get you to be that bearish when that's usually the time to not be bearish. And we have the perfect example, which was the tariffs last year. That was the perfect example. So that's when it can get to a point where it just actually loses people money. Reddit right there, that's down 2%. As that's taking a hit. What is the cause of the dump? I honestly think it's just algos today. And the reason I'm saying that is because SPY's still green on the day by 0.5%, but the semis playing up and down like Micron is, it's been happening every freaking day. I mean, if you're trading it and you know exactly when to get in and get out, which every day has been a bit more predictable than not. Because, 2 weeks ago, it was every day was a short. A month ago, every day was a long. And over the past couple of days, it's like certain time periods are long and short. I think that's just happening once again. SanDisk down 3. The Qs almost break even. And then Palantir is down because it had a 30% move yesterday. So just giving some back. I go to Disney once per year. Does anyone actually own Disney stock? Put in the chat if you own Disney. I'm pulling up their numbers right now. It's just since 2023, dude, I've not understood the excitement behind Disney Plus. And now, they're not really growing, even with the Hotstar acquisition like they would. By the way, Flutter, gambling app. Dude, I am actually starting to get a bit concerned about the gambling apps. Flutter's down 9%. They missed on EPS. And they missed on the revenue guide. But I think the reason they're missing is because there are, there's tons of lawsuits across the board. And then you have the broader market saying, okay, if these lawsuits materialize and you guys can't be legal in certain places and the sentiment around gambling continues to be bad, DraftKings, Robinhood would be affected, Coinbase, all these prediction markets. By the way, Polymarket's trying to raise at 20 billion. They were at 10 billion a couple months ago. Kalshi's trying to raise at 40 billion. I don't know if the prediction market should be worth that much. Like, their number is probably justified. They should get that type of multiple, but the political risk is real if you get a different party in office that's, not a fan of this. So revenue on Disney, they missed slightly, up 7% year over year. Adjusted EPS up 30%, operating income up 21%, free cash flow up 63%. Operating income was a little bit lower than expected. They bought $9 billion worth of shares for the year, bought $7.2 billion for the past 9 months. Sports is down 18% year over year. ESPN has not been going that well. Experiences, parks, that's up 20%. Entertainment on Disney Plus is up 64% when it comes to operating income. So, you have growth metrics that are there. It's just, is this a compounder of earnings that results in a re-rating of the stock in a meaningful way? And if Netflix is not even doing that right now, then is the parks business enough to do that for Disney? Oh yeah, Burry does have Flutter. I forgot. He bought DraftKings and Flutter. Honestly, he bought them as a hedge to the prediction markets. And in reality, I think if the prediction markets go in trouble, I think all the gambling apps have some bigger issues. Just got off the gold wait list for Robinhood. There's now 1 million holders now on that Robinhood gold list or gold card. Do you guys remember when we had to debate in 2024, all the people saying the gold card would fail? Like Robinhood, there's no way they can afford to give 3%. It was like that was like the silliest story. Out of all the reasons that would fail, or all the reasons like Robinhood would blow up the credit card, like the 3% cash back, they were just subsidizing it with other parts of the business until it became profitable. And now there's $20 billion a year that gets spent through that card. It's like becoming a real moneymaker for them. So a lot of those bear cases didn't meaningfully play out. CoreWeave just went red. Palantir still red. DRAM still down 1%. I've owned Disney, but I've trimmed it a lot. Hall says the Disney parks are amazing. Avatar ride is good. See, the parks argument has never been compelling to me. Because I've heard the parks argument for 3 years, and I know people go to the parks and they enjoy it, and families love taking little kids there. But like, I don't know if that's the reason to own the stock. Like, there's got to be something deeper to the Disney thesis than just people like going to the parks or Bluey on Disney Plus. Like for Netflix is that, they are becoming entertainment for the entire world. And the reason the stock's done so poorly this year is because they are really struggling to become entertainment for the entire world because they don't have the best content. And that's why they're getting into like TV live programming, because they need stuff that people actually want to watch. Otherwise, they're not going to subscribe. Like, it's a very simple reason to understand why the stock's been hit. And I think to the same extent, Disney's in that bucket. The Avatar ride is overrated. Did anyone watch the new Avatar, the third one? The second one was horrible, dude. I watched it, but it was horrible. I feel like the third one, I tried to watch it on the airplane. I was like, dude, what is this shit, dude? I'm not watching this. The first one is the only good Avatar that's out there. NVIDIA, she's losing it. Stop going down. Go back up. You don't need to go down anymore. You've already lost $75 billion in market cap in the past 10 minutes. Is Apple getting a bid? Yeah. As soon as high beta takes a little drop, people just run to Apple. They just run to it. That's actually the scary part about Apple, dude. It's like it is your hedge against high beta volatility, but you've got to know when to get out if you're trading it, because 340 to 300 isn't fun. And it's not easy for Apple to get back to 340 because, like, unless there's some catalyst, you're going to need the market to take a little bit of a crap for everyone to go right back into Apple. So you're kind of stuck in it. And you have to wait till you get more volatility. Yeah, I don't know why gold is up. That's a pretty big move. We have not seen, we haven't seen these levels on GLD in a month. In 6 months, the last time we saw this was June, early June. That's kind of when the entire market topped out. So maybe gold is just a catch-up trade, given the S&P's back at all-time highs. Richard, thanks for the super chat. I did not see any deal with Samsung and Netlist. I've heard of Netlist as a company. I have not gone deeper into them. So I will have to take a look at that. But Samsung is signing a lot of different deals with a variety of different suppliers to bump up their AI spend. And so I would imagine they should be doing it. The VIX up 12%. Is it up 12%? Well, makes sense now that S&P is dropping. Yeah, the VIX is up a nice little 12%. Literally, this all happened in the past... Bro, this happened in like 4 minutes. At 10:50, it was down 2%. At 10:54, it's up 12. Okay, so maybe the market's anticipating some news here, even if the news is bullish. Scotty says, I sold all my AMD yesterday before the close. Did anyone take profits on AMD yesterday in the 500s? Anyone buy AMD right before the earnings? I feel like that was the most predictable 10% drop. And I'm not just saying that after it dropped. Like, again, it was up a lot going into the print. Some of these names, like, yeah, they're going to. SpaceX was the most predictable one. The fact that SpaceX touched 130 after, who the hell saw those numbers? And was like, oh, we gotta get more SpaceX. So both of those falling at the same time kind of made sense. See a few people saying they sold their AMD. Sold at 528, sold at 530, sold at 565. JD actually says, I helped my dad sell some covered calls on Zeta. He's stoked. What strike did he sell them for? That is always the cool thing about covered calls. The part that sucks is when your shares get called away. The part that's cool is like, look, if you bought Zeta at 20, it's at 28. You agree to sell the shares at 30. You pick up $3 of premium. Technically, you're selling at 33. You think the stock's not going to move higher than 30 because it's already up so much in a week. You get to kind of juice some of the volatility. But again, if Zeta goes face ripper, then those shares get called away. Yeah, I don't know why the VIX is... Wait, did the VIX just go down? Whoa. Guys, this is... Okay, so the reason you guys were all saying the VIX... Look at this. Look at this. At 10:54, it went to 18... It's 10:56. 18:43, then it went right back down to 16:41. There's no way that's a glitch, because all of you guys saw that. There's no way that's a glitch, right? Could that be a glitch? Could they have glitched out the VIX? That's an error. But it wasn't just me seeing it. It was all of you guys seeing it. Same in TradingView. There's no news headline. I mean, I see Kashkari's comments coming through the newsprint, but he talked a couple hours ago. That is a little weird. Yeah, 13% drop into whoever was trading that. Maybe have an option flow. We got some more coverage on situational awareness. Actually, the Wall Street Journal did a good piece on some more updates on situational awareness. Well, let's pull that up. I'll see if I can try to find the headline for why that spiked.
On situational awareness of a large hedge fund in which, of course, was forced to liquidate much of, if not almost all of its public equities portfolio last week. It was a story we followed closely through Thursday and Friday. Goldman Sachs president and COO John Waldron was a guest on Squawk Box earlier with Andrew Sorkin, and he discussed the fallout.
I think it's a good example of heavy risk appetite, getting maybe a little bit too far. It's a good lesson for all of us. I think it's a bit of a wake-up call for all of us.
So what's changed in the last week for you guys?
Well, I think that everybody's kind of focused on their risk positioning. Markets have run very far. You do have lots of euphoria over AI, and certain investment paradigms are being tested, and so we all have to look at our risk positions and make sure that we're comfortable with where we are. And I feel good about how Goldman Sachs handled that situation.
Where do you think?
First, what we did, guys, was forcing Goldman Sachs to offer him 4 times leverage. Other prime brokers as well involved were J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, and Citi to a lesser extent. Maybe even TD was listed. But, he 24 years old, obviously incredible performance. Nonetheless, there are some who say, well, you didn't have to offer him 4 times leverage. And, of course, Goldman Sachs absolutely made plenty of money from the fees associated with that margin that they were offering him.
Yeah, meantime, the debate is about whether or not you would consider.
Okay, I don't see any other major headlines. Besant just tweeted. He said, one of the highlights of the Warsh Fed has been watching journalists like Nick Timmeros from the Wall Street Journal reduced to reporting Fed backroom gossip because they're incapable of performing real economic or monetary policy analysis without being spoon-fed. Talk about a freaking shot at our boy Nicky T at the Journal there. So you got Besant kind of making the case that Warsh's Fed is doing things in the right way. Maybe it's these Al Jazeera headlines that Iranian officials say that 1 or 2 remaining issues are left to resolve to reach an agreement. You could kind of interpret that as bullish or bearish, which is why we saw that move. SPY getting a little recovery, but still down from the highs. 772.50 to 773.50. Otherwise, I mean, there's this headline. I don't know if the market cares that much about Russia hit 3 cargo vessels in the Black Sea, as per the Russian Defense Ministry. I mean, I guess that could create some volatility. If that was Iran, that would be different. But yeah, maybe that together. Besant is, I mean, he's technically right, though. Like the journalists don't have much to talk about if the Fed doesn't tell them what to talk about. So if you're covering the Fed and Warsh is not giving you any guidance, Scotty, thank you for the super chat, appreciate it, then, what are you going to talk? what are you going to talk about in a meaningful way? And so I think Warsh is once again just saying, let the market kind of handle what's happening here. Is gold still pumping? Yes. Which also, the VIX thing is kind of confusing, given gold is up. And I mean, over the past couple months when gold has been up, it tends to be a bit more bearish. And then you have the VIX thing coming in. You have semis kind of selling off. So it feels like the market's trying to say or express something. Is Shopify holding on to its move? Shopify still 17%. Zeta still 12%. The big winners of today still holding on to it. Disney still 2%. Uber was down 5. Uber's still down 5. That hasn't changed. Oh, in terms of the Leopold thing, so I was reading the journal piece last night. So apparently the dude did not communicate with his investors. He did not send them monthly reports. He did not respond to text messages, didn't respond to emails. His funds policy that the LP signed on to, so technically it's, they have to live with it. But his funds policy quote said, "There are no limits on the types of securities in which we may take positions on behalf of our clients, the types of positions that we may take, the concentration of our investments, or the amount of leverage that we may use." So you've got a 24-year-old kid who basically told a lot of, by the way, this wasn't pension funds, this wasn't institutional funds, this wasn't retirements, which is typically what invests in a hedge fund. These were all just super rich people that gave this kid billions of dollars. And basically he said, hey, I'm going to do whatever I want, and if you don't like it, take it or leave it. And they said, okay, do whatever you want, with no guardrails, no risk controls. And it ended up blowing up. But it's one of those things where it's like, it's kind of incredible that investors couldn't even get a monthly update on how their portfolio was doing because he wasn't sending updates. And like that it's one of those things that's like, it's just not good operational diligence when it comes to managing money. Iran's foreign minister spokesperson says joint announcement by Oman and Iran in final stage if certain third parties do not interfere. Okay, so that's similar from the Al Jazeera report. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson says geographic characteristics of the route in the Strait of Hormuz agreed to by Iran and Oman. The problem that's scaring me here is they keep saying Iran and Oman have agreed to it, but we need the U.S. and Iran to agree to it. And so it would be really important for the United States here to confirm that this is intact. But I would imagine it is, given everything that Trump's been saying. Palantir, did we lose 160? I think we did. He did get married over the weekend. Yeah, 159 on Palantir. Which, again, like, getting married is an important part of life, right? So it just has to suck, like going from a big career mishap to like one of the greatest days of your life, especially when the person you're marrying probably told you all the stocks to buy because she's the chief of staff of Dario. Like, it's just such a crazy story. Like, I didn't think we needed a documentary, but now I think we need a documentary. There's too many layers to this story. And then the Citadel angle makes it crazy as well. Rocket Lab goes red. Okay, I feel like it's going to be one of those choppy days. You really don't have a good trend unless you crushed earnings like Shopify or Zeta. Everything else is stuck within a couple bucks. Marvell above 214. I think that's still impressive, given this thing was almost at 150 last week. I know it's not at 330, but still up. He is still rich. That is fair. But it's not about being rich. Like, yeah, he's still a billionaire. Yeah, he still made a lot of money. But I feel like when you lose that much money for other people, like, unless the guy is a sociopath, I would imagine he would like feel bad that people trusted him with a lot of money and he lost it. And again, the people that are up 80% year to date in his fund are the people that invested at a much early. If you invested in April, May, June, you're not up 80%. If you invested a year ago, you still have some percentage remaining that you're up because your funds were allocated at a much cheaper price. So there was a decent chunk of money that got destroyed. And like, I would feel bad $30 billion of, and the thing that makes it feel worse is the day after everything pumps, right? So then boom, like you not only did you lose the money, but you got played by Citadel. Like I feel like his redemption arc will be Leopold eventually trying to go after Citadel to get them back for what they did, even though it was his fault that he got into it. He wants to liquidate before his wedding, and if he had waited one more day, he wouldn't have lost it all. Well, the thing is, if he had waited one more day, I don't think it would have been like, oh, stocks are up 30%. He has some room to relax, because that's when the hedge fund started. He delayed. He just finished what was inevitable. The hedge funds knew he was in trouble, which is why the short float on Micron and Nebius and Bloom just got so ridiculous. To at some point we were looking at this like, what is AI fake? Like, is all this fake? I think that they were on a mission to take him out, and he could have waited another week, which I don't think he had the time to. He still would have been liquidated, because, those funds were getting ready to make sure, and they were making a ton of money, because everyone at that point had colluded to be like, all right, this is the kid we got to take out. And Citadel was, not going to let him just fly by, especially if they needed to subsume his leverage. Like, they would have made him cry uncle. And I think he basically did it a day before, like, Nebius fell to 100 or something. That's when it would have been really bad. But I feel like that's what was the trajectory on what was potentially going to happen. Tesla right there, still down 1%. Schwab's up a little bit. SoFi holding on to a little bit of green, but still down. Yeah, he will have a new 13F soon, and so we're going to see what happens. Dude, it's so crazy, some of you guys complaining about the mic. I mean, I know some of you were trolling, but it seems like a decent amount of you are feeling the mic is not good. I will try to fix it by the afternoon. I don't know why randomly decided to give out on me, but we'll try to fix it. The rage baiting, I don't know. I think there's too many of you that like joined the stream like 5 minutes ago that are complaining about the mic. You don't even know it's a joke from the morning, which I don't think it was a joke, because I do think it is a bit lower if everyone's saying it. So I'll try to fix it. It just sounds a little soft. Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out. If it's not me, then it might be StreamYard. What else do we have? So these are the Iran updates. This is the main stuff we're looking at. Bunch of put flows on the Qs, stopping a bit more of the rally. Anthropic confirms it's building an in-house chip team for Claude. This is not news at all. We knew about this for a long time. Bloomberg, Anthropic said Claude will be co-designed with hardware so it can run faster and more efficiently at customer scale. This is part of the reason they had that multi-year agreement with Micron. They want to secure as much memory as possible. So Anthropic's going after their own custom silicon. It's not like that's changing. Mic feels kind of quiet and a little bit blown out. Yeah, I don't know. I'll fix it after. I don't know why it's doing this today. What other stats do we have? I was looking at a couple other things this morning. We talked about the 4 million call options bought on SPY yesterday. So you have a lot of momentum on S&P in terms of options. We talked about the Fed or Besant intervening with the yen yesterday and how they will continue to intervene. S&P's forward PE is now down 22%, lowest since 2020. So even with all-time highs, the earnings estimates continue to go higher, which fundamentally allow us to get a bigger move. Raymond James still thinks 800 for SpaceX. They say we reiterate our 12-month $800 price target. Operationally, compute capacity is up 1.4 gigawatts. Better visibility, strong heat shield update, and continued progress across mobile, AI, orbital infrastructure. I don't know how with a straight face they can say our 12-month target is that this company will be an $11 trillion. Like, it's just a joke, dude. Like retail does stupid stuff sometimes that makes you think things are a joke, right? Buying dumbass stocks that go up for no reason and then getting liquidated. And then you see the sell side. So yeah, NVIDIA should be worth SpaceX should be worth 2x more than NVIDIA in 12 months. It's like it's a joke. How do you trust that analyst after they say stuff like that? Like, forget even the execution. SpaceX could have phenomenal execution. You need the macro to be really friendly to give an $11 trillion market cap to any company. Forget SpaceX. What if they only get to 600, dude? I don't know if SpaceX even gets to 200 in a year. Like, remember, 230 is 3 trillion. 200 is like 2.7. And you have 96% of shares ready to be dumped on the open market. If it gets there, it's like congrats, but it's just not worth the risk, I feel like. The Elon premium only goes so far. I mean, you're seeing it with Tesla. Tesla's down 30% this year. There's no Elon premium anymore. I mean, there is technically because it still trades at 300 times earnings, but and again, it should have an Elon premium. Elon's amazing. It's just how big of a do you want to trade at 700 times earnings? Like SpaceX should be trading at what? I mean, there is no earnings for it to trade at because they're not profitable yet, but I don't know. Well, it's respectable. So I think like 250 in a year is respectable. I don't think it's going to get there, but I think you can make the case for it. 220, 250, like you can make an argument there. Otherwise, it's just feels a bit tough. Is AMD holding on to 490? We are not 484. Micron, wow, right back to 920. What a freaking volatile name, dude. 870 to 930, back to 885, back to 919. All in an hour and a half. Tons and tons of volatilities in these semi names. Do you think Zeta's a buy right now? I think you don't buy on a massive green day. You got to wait for another red opportunity. But I mean, I bought at 2370 yesterday. I think selling puts at 2425 isn't crazy. The other reason I'm not a fan of buying this today because it's like Zeta, this is the first time Zeta's ever entered this territory. So if it gives it all back tomorrow, it's like people will be like, all right, that was fake. And they'll be right about that. So it needs to stay here for a few days to feel comfortable buying into strength. But I would wait to have this normalize. But again, $6 billion. I don't think it's going to take a lot for it to hopefully move up aggressively. Who from Tesla hurt you? No one from Tesla hurt me. But once again, if you're not compounding earnings and you trade at 300 times earnings, it's a little tough when Meta trades at 15 times earnings and they're compounding earnings. Now, maybe Tesla's a more exciting company than Meta, but it kind of just doesn't matter. Again, the other big issue with Tesla is that robotaxi dream that Elon's painted. I mean, he doesn't even talk about the robotaxi anymore. Everything he talks about is orbital data space or freaking Optimus. So it's like even the stuff that he used to talk about aggressively, he's stopped because, I think he's recognizing it might not be as profitable to go after and keep marketing robotaxi. And I love FST. But I think that's become the bigger issue. Meta right there, below 590 as that gets hit. Okay. Let's see what other major headlines we have. We talked about Kashkari. Is the Uber CEO live right now? Yeah, Uber's live right now. Let's hear from him. See what he's saying.
And that took away some of our two-wheeler drivers from mobility to delivery because they're getting paid a lot to engage in that war. It really has no effect on us whatsoever. So the guidance that we gave for forward gross bookings growth is very consistent with the guidance that we gave last quarter. And hopefully we will meet and hopefully beat those kinds of expectations.
Dara, is there anything to discuss on both like the health and behavior of the consumer that you're seeing going into the second half of this year?
All signs point to a healthy consumer. We look at both our mobility and delivery business in terms of the growth of those businesses. They continue to be healthy. We look at like other indications. Are consumers trading down and eating at more affordable restaurants, or are eaters leaving less tips, eaters or riders leaving less tips? We don't see any signs whatsoever of a consumer slowdown. So the consumer remains strong. And then on the labor front, actually, our driver earnings, we've got over 10 million now earners around the world. That continues to be very healthy. And in the US, for example, driver earnings are up 8% on a year-on-year basis. So, people talk about the K-shaped economy, but we think both sides of the K continue to be very healthy. And right now, all signs point to the same going forward.
Let's take the driver out of it for a moment and talk about robotaxis. You kind of explained the plan for the rest of the year, which is to get into more cities through different partnerships and different lanes, different methods. Let's start with that. Are you wanting to see the team accelerate a bit on that deployment, Dara?
Yeah, definitely. So we're in 7 cities already with a number of partners. And just to review, we want to work with all of the ecosystem partners. And just like we want every safe human driver on our platform, we want every safe robot driver on our platform. And we're working with the entire ecosystem to accomplish that. We're in 7 markets now. By the end of the year, we'll be in 15 markets, and we're on track to be on 15 markets. And we see, a lot of advancements as it relates to our partners. I know you're going to have Aisha from Zoox on. They got a great approval from the NHTSA to run their really, really innovative and cool robot vehicles as well. We got approval for Wave to start testing operations in London as well. NVIDIA, who is a huge partner of ours, announced the release of their Alpamayo 2 model, which is a physical AI model as well.
Guys, I don't want to be that guy. I do not want to be that guy, but you guys just heard what I just heard. I don't think I have to say it, but you guys just heard what I just heard. He said Alpamayo. He didn't say Mayo, he said Mayo. So for everyone clowning me yesterday, that's a very successful CEO in front of you who just said Mayo instead of Mayo. I'm just saying. Just saying. And he's not even fully American. So just saying.
So the ecosystem around AV continues to move forward, is actually accelerating, and we are helping that ecosystem accelerate through our partnership, through investment, through data collect for a number of these partners, and then ultimately commercialization of these vehicles on the road in the cities in which we live.
Dara, on Zoox, and I'll ask Aisha this obviously.
Okay, so the same argument by Dara that robotaxi will be something that they invest in for the long term and will be a massive player in. We are getting the red candles now, folks. Unfortunately, SPY, do we officially go red? We are 90 cents away from going red. You got the bulls trying to fight to keep 772, but SpaceX still down 8, AMD down 7. Uber, unfortunately, they just have not done enough to get the market to think of them differently here, down about 6%. I don't have any breaking news here. I think we got to get used to, there might not be breaking news for why stocks take an intraday dump just because they pumped so much over the past couple of days. And if, that pump somewhat sustains itself, then there will be some give back. Like Shopify was at 165 pre-market, 145. That's a big move down, but it also probably didn't need to get that big of a move up. But it's up from 120, which is what matters. CoreWeave 92. Yeah, it's just consolidation. It's healthy, dude. With all the crap we went through in July, honestly, letting this thing just play out a bit, we just need to keep the bull market alive. It's very rare to have a 5-year stretch of just going up and to the right. I mean, we've been in a secular bull market since 2009, but for us to keep this momentum going, sometimes it needs to be slow and take its time and let it consolidate. And we just don't want to turn it into a bear market because that wouldn't be fun. There will be moments where it feels like it, but as long as things are just taking their time. Now, August in general, yes, tends to be ugly. But dude, the first 5 days of August, not ugly. S&P all-time highs. So last August, we went against the trend. Now, last August, the first 2 days were ugly. I remember explicitly. And then the rest of the month was amazing. And the exact same thing happened in September. And then unfortunately, October was October. But, you know, maybe the ugliness that we need in August doesn't come immediately, or maybe it just doesn't have to visit us. Dude, we're talking about this like a like Groundhog Day. Like if it saw its shadow or something. How many people have superstitions about certain stocks? Like before you check the stock price or something, you need to I don't know, you need to drink a glass of water or something to make sure you have good luck or something. Because I feel like everyone has a little bit of that when it comes to this. That's like me on SoFi. Roblox is down today, is it? Roblox, they had a crappy earnings. Yeah, down another 2%. Before I check BM&R, I have a bottle of whiskey. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious. Is that a form of OCD? It could be. But sometimes it's not OCD. Sometimes it's just like superstitions. But yeah, I just, keeping the secular bull alive. Because again, 2000 to 2009, that lost decade. We had .com, we had 2008. But man, it would have sucked to wake up every morning and then, every day there's something that just messes up any momentum you have. Like the only way you would have made money that time is if you were trading. If you were actually trying to DCA and long-term invest, it would have paid off after 2010. But not for those 10 years. It's going to happen eventually. Yeah, but see, it will. It's just if the Fed's going to keep printing money and the Democrats and Republicans are going to keep raising the debt ceiling and earnings in the greatest tech revolution we've ever seen are going to continue to go higher, I think we can delay that decade-long bear market for a while. Hopefully for a long time. But I agree, eventually it's probably going to happen. True, international exposure, that also was your hedge against losing a lot of momentum. NVIDIA right there, 219. Meta loses all of it today, 587. Wow, SpaceX actually above 117. Getting some green candles. And on that one as well. Have you looked at the yen carry trade? Yes, I don't think we're entering yen carry trade 2.0. Again, the yen carry trade happened in August because no one knew that the BOJ was actually raising rates. Every move the Japanese do is well documented now, especially with the new prime minister that they have that's been a lot more transparent about monetary and fiscal policy. And then you have Bessent literally tweeting pictures. I mean, not him tweeting it, but it's basically as if he was posing to get the media and the market to understand that we will interfere to make sure the yen does not get out of control. So I don't think the yen carry trade becomes something that catches investors off guard like it did in August of 24. I mean, we had a 10% drawdown on the S&P that day. It was stupid. It's like the Kospi that goes up and down 30, 40%. Like the S&P itself was down 10% because of that. And it ended up being just a phenomenal buying opportunity. Kospi, by the way, was up 4% yesterday as well. Amid if the Fed keeps printing, the yields will keep going up, though. It will kind of tank equities and make credit and cost of building data centers incrementally harder and harder to sustain. Yes, but what will keep yields down, even if the Fed keeps printing, which has kind of been the story of the 2010s and of the 2022 to 2026 era. It's been a contradictory story because, unfortunately, we've had inflation enter into the picture. But the answer is inflation. If we get inflation to come down, yields will calm down even with printing money. Because honestly, that's how it's been for a long time. The market is willing to buy debt from the government risk-free if they feel the nominal rate of return they're going to have is significantly higher because inflation is significantly lower. If you get a 5% yield and inflation's at 2%, your nominal yield is 3%, you're happy, especially if you're putting a lot of money into that. But if inflation keeps rising up and we keep printing money, then it's a recipe for disaster. And I think that's what Trump knows he can't afford to do, which is why he's finally calming down on the Iran stuff, hopefully, because it's just not going to be something the market can navigate anymore. Or at least something's got to break if that happens. Why would you keep stocks when you know rate hikes are inevitable? I don't know if rate hikes are inevitable. I think if oil drops significantly, I don't think rate hikes are inevitable. And even if they are, like, I'm not going to time selling holdings that I've had for years because of rate hikes. Like, that's not. Also, even with rate hikes, dude, I think companies are still going to compound. It will be a macro headwind. It will be annoying, but it will not stop companies from executing. It definitely won't stop the hyperscalers from continuing to generate an ROI on CapEx. It will definitely slow down the economy, which is the whole point of a rate hike. I don't know if that fundamentally means that AI itself gets hit. Also, how many rate hikes are they going to do? 25 bips? They're not going to raise us by 75 bips, 100 bips. They're not going to get us back to 5% interest rates. Like, there's just no economy in where that can be justified. So I feel like that's not the biggest thing to be afraid of. Yeah, 25 bips is not the end of the world. I agree. I agree. Amit, is Zeta expensive here? I didn't want to buy it right before earnings. Again, I would not buy the earnings pump. I mean, if you bought Palantir yesterday at 165, like, it's at 159, right? Like, you got to control the FOMO on days where it moves up and you get super excited. Because there's always tends to be better opportunities. Like, Zeta's 12 cents away from 27, from going below 27. Could it fall to 26.50? Yeah, of course. Having said that, the earnings have re-rated the company by about $3, which is a pretty big move on this name. So I think selling some puts $3 below, or just seeing how price action plays out is the best way to think of it. Also, we're not 2025. Yeah, the 3-day rule. 2025, you could buy into strength on pretty much anything, and it worked until October. Like, literally anything you could buy into strength, and it was really working. Post the tariff stuff going into October, there was a 6-month stretch where you could buy earnings momentum and it would just work. And this year it also happened for a few months, but only in the semis. And now that's reversing. And if the most high beta part of the market is reversing its buy the dip mentality, then it's going to be hard for other parts that aren't as high beta, don't have that much volume, definitely don't have that much earnings growth as the semis to, just go up and up and up and have no concern to take moments of breaks. And so I mean, we're losing that with Micron, Nebius, all those right now. Mitt, you host this daily. Yes. If you are new here, do the market open, market close every single day. Hopefully in 2027, we are going to be upgrading the experience for this show every day. I'm very, very excited for that, but I still don't know if that's officially happening. But yeah, if you've just joined over the past few weeks, it is every day, 8:45 to 11:30. And at 9:30, you just have to be ready to not mute your screen. Why would selling puts or selling calls play into advantage? So I did it's a long topic. I'll link it right here. It's an Options 101 lecture that I did for 3 hours a while ago, about a year ago. But at its core, selling puts gives you a better entry price in a stock, and you get to collect some money for having the patience to get a stock at a better price. Selling calls allows you to hedge some of your exposure and get paid to sell some of your stock. There are risks to both of them. They should not be done blindly, but you can watch that video and get a much better understanding of it. Andy QR says, I've been here for 2 days, never missed a day. That's crazy. Dude, I was talking to someone recently that they've been watching the stream for the past 2 years as well. And some of the stuff they mentioned to me, I was like, oh my goodness, you've like really watched the stream. Like they were mentioning stuff from a year ago, from like some esoteric story that I told on like a random Tuesday on a market close. And they referenced it and I was like, whoa. Like some of you guys that have been here every day, like I forgot I told that story. And I was like, that is incredible. So it is deeply, deeply appreciated. People that have been here every day. I missed one day because of jury duty. Dude, they gave me jury duty last year. I called them up. I was like, I cannot do this. She was like, why? I was like, I have a stream. She was like, I don't care. I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, I really can't. She was like, I don't know what to tell you. And then I went on ChatGPT. I was like, how do I get out of this? And they were like, you have to emphasize you're self-employed. Like, if you don't do this, bad things will happen. Yada. So I don't know what excuse I wrote up, but then they approved it. And I was like, thank goodness, bro. Because jury duty can go for like a week. I can't miss a week. Market open, market close every day. Like, are you even allowed to have your phone when you're on jury duty? I would be like staring at stock prices. Like, I don't care about the case. I would be held in contempt of court or whatever they call it. There's no way I could survive in court for a week, dude, and not have my phone. There's just no way. Stream during the... I don't think the judge would be happy about that. They can send your ass to jail, dude. You had a really like serious level of violation for contempt in court. The judge can just have you issued right out. Like you have to be very respectful when you're in court. Just say you have a huge case of ADHD. Yeah, I just said I was self-employed. It's like I gotta be able to do the show. B-Soft, appreciate you, man. Been watching longer than this, but can't wait to see you continue to grow. Deeply, deeply appreciate you, B-Soft. He was at the first New York meetup, and he was at the second one, and he just sat at the table, and I looked at him, and I was like, dude, do we know each other? And I was like, oh, you're at the first meetup. So shout out to B-Soft, man. It's been a long journey. Sid, shout out to you as well. Sid's been to basically every meetup outside of Singapore for the past year, so appreciate you, man. I really hope we can get this 2027 new studio in place because I just think it'd be so much fun, dude, to upgrade production and make it bigger. So hopefully. We do have an update right here. Interesting. Japan is considering AI platforms from Palantir and Anduril to modernize the entire military's command and control ahead of a year-end security document revision. Whoa. Japan is considering Palantir's Maven smart system and Anduril's Lattice AI. The plan aims to speed combat decisions and align Japan with U.S. military operations. Officials are examining counterattacks, missile defense, and drone coordination. Dude, if Palantir, which has a very special relationship with the Japanese, they've been there since 2019, Sompo Holdings, I think at one point owned like 3% of Palantir back in 2019. That's one of the largest insurance conglomerates in Japan. If Japan opens up the military, the unlimited budget of the military to Palantir and Anduril, I mean, that international growth that has been lacking compared to U.S. government, that shit's going to start going up. And the market's going to be excited about that. Palmer was recently in Japan. I mean, it's got to be Palantir and Anduril, right? What other real companies do you trust from a software perspective? And again, the cool thing about Anduril is the reason their gross margins are so much better than Lockheed and Raytheon is because of Lattice, because of that software offering that is so much more advanced than the legacy defense contractors. My uncle, thank you for the membership right here. He says, Naniji is watching the stream in India and sending love. If she can understand me right here. Naniji, thank you for watching. That's my grandmother, my mom's mom. My uncle is in India right now. He's there for a couple weeks from Singapore. So love you. Hope you're watching. Hope you can hear this. And hope you are enjoying. Mike, and thank you for the gift of 20, dude. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, man. 20 of you guys got gifted. Jason, you got a gifted. Danny, you got a gifted. Captain Crunch, you got a gifted. Mini Shack, you got a gifted. Timothy, Andy, Akshay, R. Fox, Mike Hawk. Keg, you all got gifted courtesy of Mr. Mikan. Thank you, Mikan, for the gifted membership. Appreciate you. Last time my grandmother saw me streaming, I think she was with my uncle last year, and I was wearing my ring that my grandfather got me. I'm not wearing it right now because, dude, I lost that shit like 2 times. I lost it twice, and at some point I got scared of like losing this ring, and I didn't want to. What do you guys complain about? Mike Hawk? What could you possibly be? Dude, I definitely said Mike Hawk. No way in hell am I believing. There's no way. There's no way. I don't even want to rewind the clip right here. No, I said Mike Hawk. Dude, Mike Hawk, can you comment in the... Okay, as I said it really quick just now, it definitely sounded like... Nah. I said Mike Hawk. Why did your username have to be Mike Hawk? Whoever you are, why? Like, why? You know I'm reading this stuff fast. You guys have all these complex usernames that I have to try to read real quickly. There's no way, bro. There's no freaking way. Oh, he's trolling with his username. Oh, shit. Oh, my gosh. That was like huge ass from last year. Huge ass. Oh, my gosh. Okay, now that makes more sense. Okay, so that's not my fault. That's his fault. He was trolling. That's not me subliminally saying something. That's, oh my gosh, dude. Timothy, Andy, Akshay, R. Fox, Mike Hawk. Dude, you guys are dragging it. You guys are dragging it. It didn't even sound that. No, you guys are actually dragging it. I'm not even going to agree with you there. Okay, R. Fox, Mike Hawk. No, you guys are dragging it. Mike Hawk, that you can hear the H. No, you're actually dragging it. No. I would agree with you if it actually sounded. No, you could hear the H. You could hear it. You could hear the H. Like I literally said Mike Hawk. Even though as I say it now, okay, I'm just going to stop saying this shit. R. Fox, Mike Hawk. If it's really quick, I get it. But like, okay, I think it's time to end the stream. It's time to end the stream. Anyway, thank you all for joining. Appreciate you. Hopefully my grandma didn't really understand what was happening for the past 30 seconds. But anyway, love you. Thank you for watching. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for the gifted memberships. We'll be back after hours. We got a lot of earnings to get into. We got SanDisk, okay? D-I-S-K. IONQ, AppLovin, SoundHound, Mercado Libre, Duolingo, Elf, Western Digital, SMR, Axon, DoorDash, Coca-Cola, Figma, Realty Income, Dutch Bros, Fluence, eBay, Symbotic, Etsy, Epsilera, Fastly. We've got a lot of companies today after the bell. So it will be chaos for earnings. But we will get through all of them. Ray, thank you for the super chat. Can you give a B-Day shout out to my friend? Okay, I'm going to say this in my mind before I think this is Jenna. Oh, no. Ray, I'm out. Goodbye. Good freaking bye. I'm not even saying it. We are done. I actually thought Ray, like I'm good friends with Ray. I legit thought like his friend was watching or something. Goodbye. Good night. I will see you guys in the market close. This is getting ridiculous.